a minute, please. Okay, we are live.
Good evening and thank you and welcome to North Dumfries Council meeting dated this July 13th, 2020. Due to COVID-19 and recommendations by Waterloo Regional Public Health to exercise social distancing and public gathering thresholds, Township Council meetings are currently being held electronically. Members of the public may watch and or participate in this open meeting electronically using any of the following methods. Watch the live stream by accessing it at the meeting at calendar.northdumfries.ca/council. Under the video column, click on the link for the meeting date that you wish to watch. You do not need your YouTube account to watch the live stream. You cannot directly participate in the meeting via the live stream, as this is for viewing only. Number two, members of the public interested in attending as an observer or wish to speak to any items listed under item 8.1, Committee of the Whole Report, or item 10, Items for Discussion, must submit the request in writing to the Clerk's Division at clerk@northdumfries.ca before 6 p.m. on July 13th. A link and or telephone number will be provided to those who register before the registration deadline. In accordance with the Township's procedural bylaw, members of the public are not able to verbally speak to all items on the council agenda. Members of the public may only verbally speak to the items listed under item 8.1 and 6 exclusively, but may submit their comments in writing for all their items. If you would like to comment on a particular item, members of the public are invited to submit written comments at clerk@northdumfries.ca, which will be provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd like to now call this meeting to order. And can I have approval of the agenda, please?
Certainly. So that motion is moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rolleman, that Council adopt the July 13th, 2020 Council agenda as presented with the following addendums. 1, add item 16.1, report number CAO-19-2020, recruitment for the Director of Community Services. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, Municipal Act Section 239, subsection 2, subsection B, and labor relations or employee negotiations, Municipal Act Section 239, subsection 2, subsection D. And 2, add item 16.2, report number CAO-20-2020, corporate business continuity and staffing resources for fall of 2020, and that's labor relations or employee negotiations, Municipal Act Section 239, subsection 2, subsection D. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Now, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature thereof? Seeing none, there's no public meeting. Presentations, we'd like to welcome Nancy Cadusak, Director of Water Services from the Region of Waterloo regarding Water Financial Plan, Water Distribution System, Township of North Dumfries and Wellesley. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. And if I can share my screen.
Of course, please.
It says I can't share the screen, so I don't know if your clerk can either allow me to or.
And that, Denise, can we help with that?
Yes, yes, I have allowed now. It should
try
be
now, Nancy.
now.
And just to be sure, are you able to see what the first slide?
Yes, Water Financial Plan, yep.
Okay, so thank you. Through to you, Mayor Foxton. This presentation is an overview of the North Dumfries and Wellesley Distribution System Financial Plan. And this report will be presented at Region Council on August 20th. I'm the Director of Water Services for the region. And I'm not sure, but Cheryl Braun, Director of Financial Services and Development Financing, was also trying to be on this at this meeting. I'm not sure if she got the invite or is able to participate or not. So
He is here, Nancy.
Yes, that invitation was extended to her.
Okay, great, thank you. So the items that to be covered in this presentation is I wanted for background to go through the 2020 approved distribution user rate budget. And from there, I wanted to talk about the renewal of the drinking water license, why the financial plan is required, and then provide a bit of information on the financial plan itself. And as you know, in 2004 and 5, North Dumfries Township and Council directed a transition from the township to the region for the operation and ownership of the distribution system. The air water system is what we call in our water system a class 2 distribution and treatment system. And the Branchdon Meadows, Roseville, and Lloyd Brown systems are classified by the province as small water systems. The staff that operate these systems are all classified at a level 2 or higher. So to give you an idea about the distribution services and what's included and what's not included. So the distribution services include the purchase of drinking water from the region. It also includes those distribution services. And I said we had certified staff. And what are some of the things that we do is that the staff do the valve maintenance, they do service leak detection work, they do water main and service lateral work, water main cleaning, hydrant maintenance. And in addition to that, we also have the water meter and billing services. So we both take and record how much water is at each meter is used. And from there, we have our finance department who creates the billing services. And within that, they look at invoicing and collecting of payments. They look at collection activities for, unfortunately, delinquent accounts. We're not doing that right now, but normally that's part of the process. They do meter reading disputes, they investigate and come up with resolutions. The meters are delivered from us to the township, and the township is responsible for the distribution of the meters, and also the building inspector verifies that the meter is installed in accordance with the building code. Some of the customer service issues that we have are things like locates. So under this, we're required to do locates, we do customer interface, we do water quality testing and analysis and follow up to questions. And we're also looking at a backflow prevention program, which we will launch in 2021. For new water services, we have an engineer who is involved and reviews any new development applications, drawings. They also look at the collection side, and we also work on asset management. So just as a bit of an overview, and I recognize that these slides won't give you a lot of information, but this is an overview of the rural air water and wastewater collection system. So the system capacity from the water supply is approximately 5,500 cubic meters a day. The population served is 5,800, and the average day flow ranges roughly around 1,500 cubic meters a day. The Roseville system has a population of 290, and the flows there average about 76 cubic meters a day. The Lloyd Brown system is supplied through the city of Cambridge, and there the population is 100, and the flows are approximately 17 cubic meters a day. And finally, with Branchdon Meadows, we have about a population of approximately 120, and the flows being 23 cubic meters a day. So to give you a bit of an understanding about how the budget is set up, we have a 10-year water distribution financial model, and all the budget documents can be found on the region's website. It includes both detailed operating and detailed 10-year capital program. Each year we look at the operating, the capital, and based on that model, we look at what rate increases are needed, and what are the monthly charges as well. We look at the flows, both historically, what flows have we seen in the system, and also look at growth and how much growth will occur, and we adjust our flows based on that information. There was a question about per capita demands. We are seeing per capita demands throughout the region decline, and that's related, one, to water efficiency programs, but also to the fact that most appliances are much more efficient than they have been in the past. So that's also incorporated. We then calculate what the best financial model is, and from there we set up the approved rate. And for 2020, the rate was $3.14 per cubic meter, and the flat or monthly fee was $10 a month. It's a best management practice to use both a flat or monthly fee as well as a volumetric cost. And that deals with both the fixed costs that are in a budget, as well as those volumetric costs, things that may change as a result of changes in volume. As of 2019, December 31st, the capital reserve was just a bit over 650,000, and the stabilization reserve was at 85,000. To better understand the budget, the total expenditures approved for 2020 was set at 2.7 million for the distribution system. And here's a breakdown of that cost. The largest cost being the purchase of water at 43% and represents approximately $1.2 million. There's 3 dedicated staff for the distribution system. As I said, they're licensed at a level 2 certificate. And there's also a maintenance component within that, which includes the work that I outlined before. We also have the billing services and laboratory testing, which represents approximately 14%. And then, of course, the capital program and debt. The 10-year capital program is 2.9 million, and it's broken down into 4 main components. The leak detection and remedial work is 1 million, distribution studies and upgrade at $500,000, meter replacement forecasted in around 2024-25 at 1.2 million, and the fleet purchase or reserve at 166. So for 2020, the balance of the capital reserve was 650,000, and the contribution to the capital reserve was 420,000. By the end of 2029, it's anticipated that we will have over 9 million in our capital reserve, and the contribution will be slightly over 1 million. Looking ahead, as I said, within the 10-year program, we have a meter replacement to look at bringing in more technology for the water meters. Right now, the age of the assets are still within, when we look at the age of the assets, they're not quite ready yet for replacement. So what we do is we start to build our reserves in anticipation of that replacement in future years. We do strategic replacement of our water infrastructure. And in the past, we have done some work in the crossing by the train tracks and some other work. We have worked on a district metering program where we actually have meters located throughout the distribution system to track flows and determine if leaks occur or are occurring and how to respond to them. We've worked on a stable operating plan, and we continue with our service connection program. There's a question about involvement or information about the capital program. There's always 2 public information sessions held by finance and an online engagement for any of the capital programs. There is a report going to Region Council on Wednesday. However, there is no timing yet of the budget process. So that's still to be confirmed. So I wanted to shift the conversation a little bit away from now the 2020 approved budget and go to why do we need this financial plan, what the purpose of it is. And I wanted to talk about the renewal of the drinking water license. Since Walkerton, operating authorities are required to hold a drinking water license. There are 5 components in this submission for the drinking water license: a drinking water works permit, a permit to take water, an accepted operational plan, accreditation by a third-party operating authority, and the financial plan. This is our 3rd financial plan that we have prepared and submitted to council and eventually to the ministry. We have already our drinking water works permits in draft, our permit to take water are completed, our operating authority accreditation we received last year. Our operating plan is submitted with all the submissions, and we are working for a submission in September of our full package. The financial plan is both prescribed in the Safe Drinking Water Act as well as through the Ontario Regulation 45307. It is not a user rate budget, so it does not set the rate. That is set each year, and that it is a budgeting process that sets the rate. It is part of a 5 submission requirements to obtain the drinking water license. And most importantly, it takes the information in the approved user rate budget and creates a statement based on the prescribed reporting requirements that are defined in this regulation. I just wanted to highlight some of the requirements of this regulation. And one of them is that the approval of Region Council. The financial plan must include financial details, including things like total revenues, total expenses, surpluses, deficit, annually and accumulated. It must present a financial picture, both of the financial assets, liabilities, net debt, financial assets, and tangible capital assets. And it must present gross cash receipts and transactions, operating capital investments, financial transactions. And these are all done in accordance with Psab. And generally speaking, Psab statements reflect amortization, the consumption of an asset based on its historical cost over its useful life. And therefore, it would not cover the true cost or the cost of replacement. And it's not used for budgeting purposes. Most municipalities do not use Psab for budgeting. So to highlight some information from the financial plan, I wanted to just take a moment and look at the Psab operating expenses that are based in the statement of operations. And it says it will go from 2.4 million in 2020 to 3.5 in 2030.
Nancy, can you tell us what PSAP stands for, please?
Public sector accounting,
Board.
pardon?
Public Sector Accounting Board.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so with our Psab costs, they include amortization. They look at historical costs, capital studies, upgrades, and financing. For the region's user rate, the operating costs are different, and they go from 2.4 in 2020 to 3 million in 2029. On the capital side, the Psab capital, it's stated that there's an annual investment of 216,000. On the user rate budget side, we're looking at contributing in 2029, 1.3 will go to our capital reserve, and we'll have a projected capital reserve balance of over 9 million by 2029, with the intent that we continue to grow the reserve to fund future linear work that we have to do. The financial plan on the Psab side really does understate the capital based on Psab's definition of what capital is. And the Psab capital doesn't include our full capital program. So it doesn't look at things like studies, master plans, and upgrades. Finally, and most importantly, the financial plan for the water system is financially viable, which is the important message that needs to be delivered to the province. And it meets the provincial requirements for renewal of the drinking water license. So with that, if there's questions.
Can the screen sharing be taken down, please? So I can see my council. Thank you. Councilors, any questions, comments? On your one page, I see, what was I looking at here? You know, and I have to ask, when the rates are put out, Nancy, North Dumfries went from being the lowest at North Dumfries and Wellesley to the highest in cost for water distribution. Why are we so much higher than everyone else?
So when the region took over the operation of the North Dumfries system, the operating costs for the system did not cover the actual costs that were being spent to operate the system. There was no or very limited reserve, and there was debt. And so one of the main things that we've worked on over the last 10 years is to actually build an operating budget that covers the cost of providing the service. And that was the first step. And so unfortunately, you may have had the lowest cost, but they were not covering the actual cost of the service.
So let's say that you're making up for that debt that was initially there. At some point, we had to hit 0.0. Why are we still higher than everyone?
If I can go back, or if you look at the approved budget, you can see that the breakdown of 2.7 million, a large portion of that is the purchased water. And the breakdown of the costs are very comparable to other distribution systems. That's how they're broken down between maintenance, purchased water, billing, and capital. Because you're one of the smallest water systems, both Wellesley and yourselves, there's some costs that you incur and fixed costs that would be the same whether you're the air system or the City of Kitchener system, like an audit. They don't care the size for an audit. You still have to provide that audit. You have 4 water systems. So you have your Lloyd Brown system, your Roseville, your Brampton, your air system. So all those things require audits. We do an audit each year. The first audit is an external audit that is done every 2 years. It is a desktop audit, and every 3rd year it is an audit that's done for where they come into the office and review everything. So sorry.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, so those are examples. Again, you have sampling, and as a system grows, you have a certain amount of sampling that is required. So that's another area where it's regulated how you sample for a water system. So if you look at the operating expenses that are in the budget book, it'll break down, but you can see the costs for the sampling of the water distribution system. And as you scale up in size, it changes the number of samples that you need, but it's an economy of scale that you have more people to distribute those costs over, and in smaller systems you have you have less people to distribute those costs over.
Okay, I just wanted to get to one point and then I'll go to Councillor Ostner is, so what you said, the audit, but you have to audit Kitchener, who had how many hundreds of thousands of people? That's got to be just as big as doing our small little clumps.
It's one audit.
Okay, so I mean, if I'm auditing 10 people and I'm running 100,000, it's the same amount of money? That seems bizarre. Councillor Ostner.
So I had a quick question about, because you said one of the largest costs are water usage. We've had a horrible time in the town of Ayr with losing water. Who pays for those? I'm going to say potentially hundreds of thousands, if not millions of liters of water that gets dumped back into the ground. Who pays for that lost water?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's water loss is part of the purchase. So when the region sells the water to the local municipality, each of the municipalities then have to account for that water loss. So
Councillor Ostner made a great comment, because I talked to you about this about 8 months ago, Nancy, if you recall, how there seems to be a break and a break and a break. I was on council when we went with the region. And at that time, it was understood that our system was going to be systematically replaced because it was an old system then. And we knew it had to be replaced. And that didn't happen. Instead, we're doing all this patchwork. And for instance, Willison Street, we had like 6 breaks in a row at exactly the same area. And Councillor Ostner talking about his area as well. Councillor Ostner, how about you?
So to add to that, because we had an issue on this side of town, actually at the very back of my property, and well, how many correspondence did I send you, Andrew, over the course of probably 6 months? And they said, no, we fixed it. And I said, it's impossible because it's like a lake back there and it's coming from the ground. So they finally, it wasn't until one of my other neighbors complained about water coming into her basement that they came back out and they missed the break. I mean, there seems to be a disconnect between when a resident, and in this case, it was us, a local, and I've lived here since 89, so I kind of know how the local area kind of gets wet or doesn't get wet. It doesn't seem to be a natural phenomenon. It seems to be there's an issue with the water system. My concern is that it costs them money to come out and fix it. So I would like to see them come out and fix the system, because if we're paying for the water usage, by them not coming out and fixing the water system, it goes back on our backs, and it's a natural resource that is wasted. and I think that water's precious in the region and we need to take care of it, fix the system so we're not dumping millions of liters into the ground, because that is totally inefficient.
So the water loss that occurs is, and I'll just back up so we're talking the same language when you say fixing the system. So the water mains that are in the township in Ayr are not where the water leakage is occurring. It's the service connections and that it's occurring in. And one of the issues with service connections is that the building code governs, as you probably know, the building code covers the portion of how you do construction up to the valve box. And then the building code doesn't cover the construction going into the home. And so when we do find a water leakage in the service connection, we do a full repair. And if you probably know Rick Joyce, and he goes around, he's been telling me and confirming that they do a full lateral replacement when they do find a water main leak in the service connection. The leakage is not occurring in the water mains, and the water mains are not of a age that require them to be replaced. So it's not easy to find service connection leakage. Now, I can't speak to your specific example. I do recall there was an issue with 2 locations and someone that had issues in their backyard. But we have installed in the last year and over the last couple of years, we have done a number of different things with our leak detection program. We did work on a district metering system, which breaks the distribution system down into zones. And we've actually installed water meters over the last year and a half in various zones within the distribution system. And what they can do is then download the information from the system and analyze if there is leakage, and they can see that. And from there, then they go back and they do acoustic testing. So we have made changes to the distribution to help us. We identify more quickly where those service leaks and could be helpful in detecting them as well. We've
Do
done
you have the proper, sorry, go ahead.
Finish, Nancy.
We did some satellite imagery as well, which helped identify, it was a newer technology to identify where leakage or water was pooling. So we've done that, but it's more the district metering is the real tool that we've had the most success with. And that was installed over the last year and a half. And we agree it's something that we need to address, and that's why we move forward with this step. And we had seen improvements over the last 6 to 8 months.
Thank you. Councillor Osner.
No, I was just going to ask if they finally did get the proper acoustic measuring devices, because we've had them all around here, and they couldn't detect one way or another exactly where it was coming from. They did end up finally coming out and lifting up the ground and found another issue on top of an issue that they just had fixed in the same area like several months before. So so they do have all this equipment now, because I think they were struggling with certain equipment last year, as soon as even last year.
Yeah, I can confirm the status of the equipment for you and get back to you.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Ullman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question to Nancy is this report only for Air, or is this for Air and Wellesley, or for North Dumfries and Wellesley? Is it just North Dumfries, or?
No, it's a combined system. So it's one rate for both North Dumfries and Wellesley, and one financial plan for North Dumfries, Wellesley.
Where do I find the breakdown in this between North Dumfries costs and Wellesley costs?
I'm not, well, we don't break them down. We operate in the region. We operate one wholesale rate, and a decision was made early on to operate as one retail rate.
So there's no way to actually get a real number for what it costs to run the system for North Dumfries, or to break it down even further, what it costs to run Branchton, or what it costs to run Roseville or Air. We have no numbers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we operate it as when we budget, we operate it as one system.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Austin.
So just to add on to that, then how do you have true numbers for North Dumfries? How do you have any true? I'd like to come up with your budget and stuff. How do you even know that in our area usage is declining, or that we need to add to our system because the demand is higher than supply?
So for flows and demands, we look at, for budgeting purposes, we look at a combined rate for Wellesley North Dumfries. For the water system, we know how much flow is coming out of the water system. We look to planning for growth. I think this is what you're asking for, growth projections on your both your development and what's projected in the future. And then we annually do a water wastewater monitoring report, which is available on our website. So we look at all the systems, and they would include Roseville, they would include Branchdon Meadows, they're not Lloyd Brown, and then a separate one for Wellesley. And they would look at the flows that are being produced. So we know how much production through the meter and the billing. They know what is being billed for North Dumfries. They know what's being billed for Wellesley. But
So then to follow up,
we don't build a separate budget. We build one budget for the retail rate.
but to follow up on Councillor Roloman's question then, so there is a way to find out the flow levels and amounts for Air Proper, Clyde Branchdon, Roseville, etc.
Yes, we have all the flow information if you were looking for that. Yes.
Yeah, that would be interesting to have. I'd like to see what the flow rate is, the amount of water that is coming into air versus the amount of water that is actually like being built or whatever you may say. How do you measure and how do you know how many gallons or liters or whatever are actually being used versus wasted? Is there a way to find that out? Because you have water meters on every house. Between your water meters coming into air, which should be charged, versus the water that's being used in every house, which should be charged, there's that twilight zone.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in that twilight zone, water's disappearing. Do we know how much water's disappearing?
We would have to do that analysis. We use different trends. So one of the trends that we use for water losses, we look at nighttime flows, and we do different analysis or trending to determine how our water loss, the success of our water loss program.
So Nancy, if you could provide that type of data, because he makes a really valid point, Councillor Austin. So if we could see how much we are really losing.
Is that possible, Nancy?
We can look at providing some information on the water loss.
Councillor
you.
Roman.
Well, I want to follow up with what Councillor Oster is saying. The water loss is a big concern. So my question would be, is our water loss in air greater than the water loss in, say, in the village of Wellesley? Or is it just all put together in one big lump sum and we don't really know? Because we've all heard rumors about, as Councillor Oster alluded to before, thousands of liters of water being lost all the time. And to find out that we have to pay for it regardless, there's very little incentive for the region to solve this problem of the water loss if they're being paid for the water being purchased anyway. So from a township point of view, our residents are paying for water that's being lost, and the region has very little incentive to solve this problem. This problem is not being solved.
If I can just, on Nancy's defense, the region has the highest esteem of water and protecting water. It is one of their main things. And being part of TAPMO, I'm very aware of the fight they put in to take care of water. The loss is a concern, and I'm sure the region takes it as a concern as well. And we'll get that information, and we'll find out, working together, if we can improve it. But I don't believe that they're losing it and not taking care of it due to some financial gain. Councillor Osner.
I understand that, Mayor Foxton. The only problem is that it's still a business. And by having a business that runs an inefficient system is on the taxpayer, is on the water user. Having a system that is being replaced by the region, it costs the region money that they probably do not have. So therein lies the problem. Do you keep running an inefficient system, or do you fix the problem and run an efficient system?
Exactly.
The latter is the expensive way to do it. And looking at it from a business sense, it makes sense that we're running at such an inefficient system of water loss. And, you know, let's just throw 5% a year on for the next 4 or 5 years to the residents, let them pay for it.
Well, let's find out the numbers first. So I'm sure, Nancy, you'll provide us with the numbers to see what is that loss. And I'm sure once you realize it as well as us, we can find hopefully a solution to this and how to deal with it.
Yeah, I can say that we've always, you know, it has been something that we have been monitoring. It is very difficult to identify service leak issues, but we have taken a number of steps over the past years. So I will highlight through to Mayor Foxton, I will highlight some of the actions that the distribution system has taken to identify water loss, some of the issues that we've seen. It's not an easy issue. But a full replacement of any service connections is being done. So it's not partial, it's a full replacement. And that continues, and that's within our operating maintenance costs. So we do invest in that as part of our operating program.
Okay, so we need more information. Councillor Williman and then Ms. Dettel.
Yes, I have another question regarding the capital program. Talking about reinvestment in aging infrastructure beyond 10 years, where do I find the breakdown of those projects and which projects are slated for what years? We know which ones are being done in Wellesley, which ones are being done in North Dumfries. Do we have some sort of like 10-year plan laid out somewhere? Like, where do I find that information?
So through our asset management program, they're actually looking at the size, the age, and they've broken all that information down. And then from there, they've projected out when the reinvestment needs to occur. And it falls outside the 10-year window that we have right now to look at. So that's part of the reason.
No projects in the next 10 years, you're saying?
You're correct. So
our debenture and air is now finished as well, right? In 2020?
In 2020.
So there's no projects. Is that why the capital reserve is going to be built up for the next 10 years?
That's correct. Because at that point, after that 10-year period, then those projects start to occur.
And is that capital reserve is part of it for North Dumfries, part of it for Wellesley, or is it all one big lump sum?
It's again a shared reserve between the two.
Based on proportional population or based on the size of the system?
Your assets are both equal, around 20 million.
Right.
Yeah.
Ms. Dettel.
So just to clarify, Nancy, what you were saying earlier, the budget will be brought back. You haven't got the dates yet for it, but it's going to be brought back, I believe, usually it's in the fall. And the rates are actually set for, is January 1st?
That's correct.
And those rates are actually water and sewer for the air system. The other systems are just for water. So this report, though, is just on the water.
The financial plan only focuses is a requirement through the Walkerton. So it's the requirement of the drinking water license and only looks at the water system. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Osler.
Sorry, one more question, Nancy, and then we'll let you get back to your life. What is the
This is her life.
her real life, not her job, her real life. So what is the average life expectancy for a water system infrastructure, let's say?
Yeah, it depends on the pipe, the size of the pipe, the type of pipe. Could range from 70 to over 100 plus years. So again, it depends on what the system. Providing
it was installed correctly to begin with.
And normally for linear infrastructure, you look at the age of the service life of the of the water main, but you can also do, before you go and replace pipe, which is expensive, you also can do an analysis to look at what actually the quality of that pipe is. And sometimes we found that pipe over 100 years is still an excellent quality. Sometimes younger pipe is not in good quality, and so we have to replace it earlier.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions, then the resolution. Clerk, please.
Okay, so it's moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Rowland that the presentation received from Nancy Kulisek, Director of Water Services with the Region of Waterloo regarding Water Financial Plan, Water Distribution Systems, Townships of North Dumfries and Wellesley be received, and that representatives from the Region of Waterloo be requested to attend as a delegation before Township Council as part of the region's 2021 water sewer budget deliberations prior to the adoption of the 2021 water and sewer rates bylaw. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Nancy, when you send the information requested, would you send it to the clerk, please, so she can distribute it to all the councillors
Okay, thank you.
and staff? Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Nancy. Take care.
Bye.
See you Wednesday. Okay, so next up, I believe, is Scott Eby with the Air Centennials regarding a request to run a Blue Line Club at Air Centennial home games at the North Dumfries Community Complex. Scott, are you there?
So yeah, just
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Scott. Hi, how are you?
Good, Mayor and Council.
So
This
go
is
ahead,
odd.
Scott.
Is everybody safe?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Okay, so as you know, we've moved up to the Junior B ranks for the next season, for the upcoming season. So at one of our board meetings that we had in the spring here, obviously it's going to be a bigger budget, and the alumni, myself and a couple others, probably 8 of us right now included, we would like to run a Blue Line Club to help the team raise funds or offset some expenses for the team, which is something that's never been done before. But going ahead, we feel that there might be a revenue stream that we've untouched or untapped. So basically what we'd like is for the township to allow us to sell liquor or beer in the arena seating area of the NDCC. Any questions or?
Okay, Scott, so you and I touched base a bit, and we had talked about the events room, but you were looking for something else other than that. Do you want to try and explain, Scott?
So, okay, so, and this was brought up with Tim Berry as well. So you and I had actually talked about the events room, and then Tim Berry made note. He said, like, we'd probably like to use that because at the Junior B level, you're getting scouts to see players to move up to the higher level. And what a lot of places, your Elmira's, Waterloo's and whatnot, they'll have a room for these scouts and whatnot to like have a coffee, maybe compare notes in between periods. And we thought the event room would be great for them. And then like furthering discussions with Andrew last week was brought up about possibly and we did it a couple of years ago out in the seating area at an all-star game, and that we held. And so anyways, the seating area seemed like a logical place when I was speaking with Andrew, because it brings like a professional atmosphere to the game itself. Obviously it would be policed and security would be like utmost, because we still want to keep it a family type atmosphere. But every Junior B team, I believe, has a Blue Line Club, and that's again why we want to tap into that. And we were one of only, in our loop of the Junior C loop, we were one of only 3 teams that did not have a Blue Line Club. So yeah, it's kind of where we're at.
Councilors, any questions? Councilor McCreary.
Yeah, so I guess first I'd like to kind of congratulate the Air Centennials on becoming a Junior B. I think that's a good achievement, great for the town. But this, selling the alcohol, I guess, is something new that we haven't done before. And I know that with other rentals, when we rent venues, township venues, and alcohol is going to be served, the rental costs are always higher than if alcohol is not going to be served, because of the the additional garbage. It just seems to be created, the additional sort of mess that's generally created by alcohol. So this will result in additional costs to the township. So how is the township going to handle recouping those costs?
If I may, Scott, on your behalf, I believe CEO McNeely and Sunny and the Centennials will work on that and probably provide a report to council on the logistics of how it's got to happen. So right now, I think we're just going to pass the potential stuff of going forward to feel this out. I don't think we're passing 100% that it can go ahead at this point. Is that correct, CEO McNeely?
Yeah,
Mayor,
yeah.
the draft resolution that's in front of council would actually allow the Centennials to submit a liquor license request to the AGCO. What the recommendation talks about is the staff working with the Centennials on what that liquor license would look like, because in accordance with our municipal alcohol policy, depending upon the number of people to be within the licensed area, that triggers a certain amount of resources that have to be deployed. And Scott did touch upon that in his presentation in terms of there's a ratio of smart serve patrons, there's the security deployment and the monitors and things like that. So they're going to have a whole range of games that will have different types of attendance. And so what we were looking at working with Scott is a scalable license that would identify certain areas within the bowl so that if they're playing a team perhaps at a distance where you may not get quite as many patrons in the stands, the footprint of their licensed area may shrink. If they have a playoff game and there's anticipated larger attendance, then the footprint of where the license would apply would be expandable, but so would then their complement of resources to support the bigger footprint. And there's also the opportunity as part of that aspect to speak to the issue of the cleanup. And at a very, very high level, Scott and I talked last week, perhaps where there's assistance provided by the Sens through their volunteers to assist with the cleanup within the license footprint at that given home game. So those are all sorts of the things that we'd like to flesh out. But it's actually easier when you're sitting in the bowl and you can sort of look at the capacity of different areas within the bowl. And with that, we also have to look at broader circulation issues, because we have to maintain clear paths of travel to a series of doors that directly exit out the building in the event of the fire alarm being activated. And so all those things have to be sort of sorted out, but therefore they're fairly procedural and they're laid out in the township's municipal alcohol policy. So the resolution in front of council tonight is if you have a comfort level to have a portion of the NDCC bowl license to serve alcohol during the Sens home games for the 2020-21 season, that's what we're seeking of council. And then staff would work with Scott and the alumni at the Sens to work out some of the logistical details.
And this is not new. They have done it before for a short time. Councillor Gillespie, and then Councillor Roman.
When you say the bowl, is that like right around the ice surface? Like you're going to be able to drink right around the ice surface?
So the proposal would be within the seating area of the bowl or portions of the seating area. That would be the area where the drinks can be consumed, watching the game of hockey. And the serving area would likely be in one of the corners, likely the south west corner of the arena because there's a fairly big alcove in there where we can place the distribution center, the ticket booth for the sale of alcohol, and still allow for that free pathway of movement of other patrons in the bowl to be able to move around the arena.
I believe Councilor, is that, oh, you done, Councilor Gillespie? That's where they had it the last time they did it, in the southwest corner. Councilor Roman, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question was, they came to us before and wanted to set up a Blue Line Club, and for some reason it didn't work out, and I can't remember what the reason was, but I'd like to see if we can make sure that this time it gets through, because I think it would really help the Junior B team to have that blue line, or to have that ability to have alcohol. So hopefully, whatever pitfalls we had last time, we can avoid those, and we can get this done.
I think they
Right.
tried to do it in a very short time, and they didn't have the solid volunteer base, and it was too strenuous. I think this is a little more organized. I hope so. Councilor Osner.
I think that if we start this at the beginning of the season and run it for the whole season, because it's going to take time to catch on when people realize, oh, like they've got this this set up. My question was, though, on top of that, is there a way? Would there be an issue or a problem? Is there a way to have like concession servers, or they walk around with the coolers and up and down the aisle selling the beers like they do at the other arenas?
What do you think, Scott?
That's an answer for me. Okay, so I mean, it's obviously an avenue we could explore possibly. I think personally, I'd like it in one area, just it's more controlled. At the end of the day, we don't want to make it an alcohol first event. We want the game to be number one, and so it's more of a luxury, I guess, to be able to offer it. And but we don't want to take away from the game, because that's what we want people there for.
Any other questions, councilors? Seeing none, the resolution, please, clerk.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and then seconded by Councillor Osner, that the delegation received from Scott Eby with the Air Centennials regarding a request to run a Blue Line Club at Air Centennial home games at the North Dumfries Community Complex be received, and that Council endorse the issuance of a liquor license to the Air Centennials by the Alcohol Gaming Commissioner of Ontario, the AGCO, for their games during the 2020/2021 season, and that staff work with the Centennials on the framework and protocols for the liquor license applicant, and that staff in the spring of 2021, following the conclusion of the Centennial season, provide a follow-up report on this matter for Council's consideration. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Can I add one more thing, Mayor Foxton?
First, please, Councilor Osner.
Just to clarify, Scott's still on the phone, right? So
Yes.
yeah. So just to clarify, when I say concessions, I don't mean just the booze.
No.
I mean things like, popcorn, chip, all that stuff that during the game people might not want to get up to go, or the lineup might be too long. Because I know we've always had an issue with survival of concessions. And I just thought that might be a helpful balance.
Yeah, if that falls in within our, I don't want to step on, what's the gentleman at the booth's name? I can't remember his name. I don't want to step on his toes. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, do it with him. Do it in
Absolutely,
conjunction with him.
Yeah. So
Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah. Okay, and thank you very much, Scott. Have a good night.
yes, thank you guys.
Right.
Okay, and now I need a motion to adjourn council to sit as committee of the whole.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner, that Council adjourn to sit as the committee of the whole. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Finance function area. And would anybody like to speak on the financial functions? Councillor McCreary.
I would like to speak on 16-2020.
Okay, so noted. And Councillor Roman.
Yes, on that same report, 16-2020.
Anyone else?
Right. Sorry, you've lost me. 16-2020. What?
8.1B. That's what's here.
Oh, okay.
Anyone else? So-
Same. Oh, Councillor Gillespie.
Oh, I apologize.
The same 811B is how I have it down.
Okay. So the others are going to pass except for 811B is going to be pulled
Yep, so I have the resolution here to approve as present, like to.
as presented. You don't have to read the whole thing.
Okay, so moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Ossner that the Committee of the Whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in the staff reports listed in the finance function area. 8.1.1A, report number FIN-15-2020, the 2020 Cambridge and North Dumfries Community Foundation Grant Award and Allocation. So that is the staff recommendation as presented in the report. And item 8.1.1C, report number FIN-17-2020, financial updates to June 30th, 2020. And that is the staff recommendation as presented in the report. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on those?
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, now we're on 8.11B. I believe Councillor McCreary was first, then Councillor Roman, Councillor Gillespie, Councillor Ossner. So Councillor McCreary, please.
I have a great deal of concern about the money going into the Pandemic Community Relief Fund. I mean, I assume that means that we're going to be perhaps giving direct financial relief to some individuals or businesses in the township. And I think, you know, at first blush, having kind of a social program like that seems like a really nice idea. But I think as a practical matter, it would be very difficult for the township to administer something like that on an equitable, you know, transparent and accountable way. If somebody's going to be, someone or an individual is going to be asking for financial support, they're going to have to give us some sort of, demonstrate their need. So we would need to be asking for confidential financial information, such as maybe tax returns or a certified statement of their net worth to show that they actually need the funds. I think the names of the recipients should be disclosed. The amounts that they receive should be disclosed. And, you know, taxpayers are going to want to see all this information because they're going to want to know what we use to support the decisions we made about who is to get this money. I think the federal government's already doing a good job at this. They've got the SERB and the wage subsidies. I think the township does not have the resources or the expertise to administer this kind of a program. I think it would really be a big mistake for the township to get involved in this type of thing, and it's fraught with problems. And all taxpayers have made a contribution to that surplus, that $100,000 surplus. So I think that all taxpayers should receive the benefit from it. So I would like to see that $100,000 actually go into the township working fund. Now, I guess that is money that would be available to us perhaps to offset something like almost like a tax stabilization reserve, so that money would be available to everyone and not just a select group of people. So that's my concern.
I believe Councillor Roman, you were next.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was thinking about the Pandemic Community Relief Fund, and my interpretation of it was that it was going to be geared towards community groups. So, you know, the food bank or Langs or whoever, if they have some sort of operational shortfall due to COVID, they're unable to reach their fundraising targets, then perhaps that money could be used for community groups. I didn't really read it as being for businesses or business owners. So if the true intention is it for it to be used for community groups, or is it to be, as Councilor McCreary just pointed out, for businesses? I'd be in favor of it if it was going to help, the ministerial group or help the different, not-for-profit groups in the township that operate in the township. And then also I was wondering if we don't use that money, or if we don't use the money in the pandemic fund, contingency fund, would that money then be transferred to the working fund after COVID has been ended?
Councillor, Ms. Stedall or Mr. McNeely? Go ahead, Ms. Stedall.
So any direction for that money, if it is going to go, if it doesn't get utilized and go somewhere else, would definitely have to come back to council for another motion.
Or we can framework the motion to stay that it will go for this, and should it not be used or necessary, it will go into a certain fund. That can be part of the motion, I believe, as well. Councillor, I see McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So one of the questions that Councillor Rowland asked was, is the fund as framed meant for various community or non-governmental organizations that operate in the township, or is it broader in its spectrum where it could be available to be tapped in by business organizations? The recommendation talks about a committee being established by council, and that committee would come back to council with criterion or recommendations as to the mandate and how those funds would be, what the eligible categories would be. So effectively, terms of reference, council would have to approve those. So the report as presently framed does not speak to the end recipient. It just allocates and protects a fund of monies. And council would still have to then see the preparation of terms of reference, approve those terms of reference, and on that basis, the committee would then be able to discharge its duties.
I'm going to let Councillor Rowland respond to that, Councillor Ossner, okay, and then we'll come to you. It was Pam next, and then you. Go ahead,
Thank you.
Councillor Rowland.
Just a follow up to the CEO's answer. So if we did set up a committee, the problem is going to be that Councillor Ossner, myself, and Councillor Gillespie are all involved in nonprofit organizations in the township. So the only person available, I think, would be Councillor McCreary. So I don't know if Councillor McCreary is going to be in favor of chairing this committee.
I'm going to go to Councillor Gillespie now.
Well, I think I kind of agree with Councillor McCreary on the whole, what is this, the purpose of this whole thing? I was a little confused on that. And who is allowed to get on this committee? Like, where do we find these people? How do we advertise for that? That was a big concern. And I didn't even think of us all being involved in nonprofits. So, and the money for the internet reserve, I'm really confused about that too. Why we've already put money into SWIFT. Why are we putting more money into this internet thing?
CEO McNeely, can I let you touch base on that one?
Certainly. So there are areas that are not eligible for SWIFT funding, yet we know there are deficiencies in terms of being able to get significant enough broadband width to support their operations. And so this would allow us to place out an RFP to eligible ISP providers as a financial incentive to assist in extending a higher capacity fiber to the address or equivalent into areas like our business parks, with the intent that it would either support those existing businesses and hopefully keep them within the township, and or to attract new businesses within the business parks to grow our assessment and local employment base.
ISP means Internet Service Providers.
Yeah, I realize that. I think we're just, we keep putting money out and we're not getting anything for internet. It's coming, but nothing seems to be coming.
Well, actually, the RFP's gone out. The RFP has gone out, and I believe it's being approved soon. I'm on the PAC committee for SWIFT. I am not allowed to sit on the RFP evaluation for Waterloo Region because I have a conflict, but we should know that decision before September. I've got Councillor Osner, Councillor McCreary, and Ms. Dettle. Anything else, Councillor Gillespie?
No.
Councillor Osner.
So my question is, can it not be put into, as Councilor McCreary says, like a working fund or something like that, and then we can decide if the situation arises as a council, how that fund, how we will take a certain amount of that fund to deal with the situations at the time, rather than creating more funds. It seems like we keep adding to our funds, and we keep, for different reasons. Why not just put it in the bank and use it if we need it? I agree with Councilor McCreary. I think that we should just put it into a working fund or into our capital and leave it there. And if the situation arises, I mean, really, in all essence, I think to set up a fund, we should have done this 4 months ago. Not now.
This was based on the audit. So Councillor Osner, we weren't aware of this amount of money back then. Ms. Dettle.
Yeah, just a comment about the reason that we actually gave council some options as to whether or not they would want to put it into reserve instead of just putting it into reserve, is that a couple of these, including the broadband reserve or internet and the community relief fund, those would actually require additional work that needs to be done. So they'd be the beginning of a project, either setting up a committee or trying to get some requests for proposals to go out. So that's why they were identified separately rather than just going into the working fund, to see if there was any momentum from council to try and get those things going. That's why they were listed separately. The pandemic contingency fund, that $100,000, is just so that council and everybody is aware that there could potentially be a hit. We're not finished with the pandemic with costs. There's some projections that are in there. So that's why those two, but there's nothing stopping council from saying that let's just put the money, all of it if you want, into the working fund reserve. The other part of it was that the recommendation is that we don't use the working fund reserve all the time. There was a time when the township had their reserves depleted, and we want to make sure that if the money is going to be used for something, instead of pulling it back out of the working fund reserve all the time, is that we actually earmark it and say this is what the project is and what we want to use it for. But if we don't have anything specific in mind, that's why the recommendation at the bottom is that the balance and of any surplus would just go back into the reserve, into the working fund reserve. Does that help?
Councillor McCreary.
I just want to make a comment about the idea of maybe this pandemic community relief fund money going to nonprofits. The United Way has raised awful lot of money, additional money, to deal with that problem. A lot of the nonprofits now, they aren't able to do the fundraising activities they normally did. So United Way has gone out and raised a lot of money. So that's also being looked after by other groups in the community. It isn't something that we need to get involved in. And as far as chairing this committee, the Pandemic Relief Fund Committee, because I don't support the creation of the fund, I will not be available to chair it.
If I may, I don't know whether you could find an objective committee. I don't know if it's too tempting for some business people to get on to try to steer money that way. It's too tempting for not-for-profits to get on to try and steer it that way. How do you select an objective committee? And then if the committee goes off on a certain direction, then everybody gets very angry at council because they haven't really sort of hit on what we want. And listening to you guys, I'm not sure what we want. Would it be fair? I almost want to say, let's take a portion of this money and put it aside should something happen that we really need it for. And I don't know what that is. You know what I thought? What one thing is that when COVID-19 is over, maybe we really try and reach out to the community and get them to come together and do a type of celebration. And coming together, we're not going to ever be the same. It's not going to be masses of people and crowded, but there is going to be coming together, and we have to find out the new normal. So I thought of something like that in all of the wards. Remember that neighborhood fund that the community foundations talked to us about, which is still out there for us to apply for. But maybe taking some of this money and saying, you know, $10,000 to each ward. And let your people decide how you want to use it. And I can just see Councilor McCreary saying, put it on working fund reserves. Is that what you're going to say, Councilor McCreary?
No, I'm just saying, I don't think I can justify spending that much money on a party. And
oh, I'm not necessarily saying a party. That's something that you guys would decide upon. But Council, what are you saying? Are you saying that maybe this isn't the best way you want to move right now? Is Councilor Rollman?
I think you're onto something. I think it's just the probably just the first one, the pandemic community fund that we're talking about. The other ones, I think the contingency fund and all that's fine. It's just a $100,000 one. Maybe we just take that $100,000 and just put that into the working fund, and then we can deal with requests and stuff along the way as they pop up.
Councilor Gillespie, were you next?
Yes, I agree with Councilor Rollman. I think we should put that money into the working fund, and you know, something comes up, we can pull it out of there.
And Councilor McCreary?
I just wanted to make a comment about the internet broadband reserve. I think it's a little bit worrisome that we step in and get involved in providing internet services, because really that's the responsibility of the federal government, but they have continuously let down rural communities, and they're not really stepping up to the plate and making sure that rural residents get fair, equal, and affordable and good internet. So if we were to take that money and focus on a target group being maybe the business parks and our commercial areas, I would support that. I am a little bit concerned of some of that money going to residential, because we can't cover everybody. I know Swift will pick up some, and maybe we can try and help some others, but there are going to be people that are left behind again, and we probably can't afford to help everyone. So concentrating first on the business parks and commercial areas is a good approach, and trying to partner with maybe the businesses to get something going would be a good idea. And I look forward to seeing the report that staff brings forward on how we could spend that money.
Yeah, CEO McNeely and I were discussing this, and CEO McNeely, you were saying that 50-10 is not good enough for a business. What ratio were you looking at?
So Madam Mayor, you may recall Council actually at your last meeting endorsed a recommendation that staff framed as it relates to employment areas. And we talked about a minimum of 100 microbits per second. And at that threshold as being your minimum, then you've got better capacity and bandwidth to deal with significant movements of data, which a lot of our businesses in our business park, especially along the 401 97 business park, that's a core portion of their business operations.
Okay, thank you. So we're still talking working fund reserve. Did we want to up the business internet one to 200,000 from 170 to 2,000 and put 170 into working fund reserves? What are your thoughts?
I think that's a good idea.
Councilor McCreary?
So you're talking about putting another $30,000 into the internet reserve, bringing it up to 200, and then taking the balance in the pandemic fund of 70 and putting that in working capital?
Correct.
Yes, that's I could support that.
Let me see, Councilor Gillespie, go ahead.
Is there not already 30,000 in the fund?
Yes.
Didn't I read that wrong? So yes, so it's all, if we put this 170 in, it's going to be 200.
Yeah, I just would like to bump it up more. I think 200,000 isn't going to cover very much. Ms. Dettle.
Just a note, there was another part of it in regards to the internet. We talked a little bit about putting some hotspots up in some of the rural areas. So right now, if you are in urban areas, you can drive up to your local commercial establishment, certain places, and you can get free Wi-Fi. So part of this money was talking about taking a look at seeing if we could possibly put it in some rural community establishments, possibly, the Roseville Hall, or maybe the Clyde Women's Institute, put something that's available there. So if people want to drive up to at least something to get something where they don't have to drive into town. So there was a little bit of extra beyond just the business parks that we were talking about with the internet.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Councillor Osner, what did you think?
No, I think that's a great idea. What I was going to about the transfer of the money, like that works out. I support that. Just a quick question when it comes to the internet. Did Elon Musk not just launch some low-level satellites into the atmosphere to provide higher speed internet directly through, it's either his company or another company? I thought that they had they were either going to or they did launch satellites, low-level satellites, to improve internet. You could get the internet straight from the satellites, stuff like that, rather than having to have infrastructure in. You'd basically go Wi-Fi. Did anybody hear about that?
No, but I think it's wonderful.
It's called Starlink, right?
Is that the
Oh,
start?
Starlink?
Because he just launched how many satellites?
Yeah.
Well, we can't do anything about that yet, and we know SWIFT has already been approved for North Dumfries. And so I'm going to ask that the recommendation be amended. I can't do that. I'm the chair. Would one of you please ask that the recommendation be amended so that the internet amount goes up to 200,000 and the COVID-19 pandemic committee one go to zero and the 170 be removed into the working fund reserve? If that's the wish of council. Councillor Roman?
I'll move that.
Councillor Roman, seconder, please.
I'll second.
Councillor Osner seconds it.
Sorry, who was the mover on that, Mayor Foxton?
Councillor Roman was the mover and Councillor Osner was the seconder. And Ms. Gillespie, Councillor Gillespie, what can I do for you? And then CEO McNeely.
I'm really confused where you're getting 170 to the working fund.
Because we're going to take 30,000 from the COVID-19 pandemic thing and put it into the internet one.
So
yeah, but aren't you keeping the 100,000 for the contingency fund? It's just the community relief that we were getting rid of, right? Aren't we keeping the 100 for the contingency?
It's just 70, not 170.
yeah, so it would read A would be deleted. There would be no
Oh.
B would remain as it is. C would be 200,000 and D
Right.
would remain as it is because it just speaks to the balance. We don't
Right,
need-
balance go to working fund reserve, correct.
Okay. So it's not 170,000.
170,000 was the original working fund reserve. Oh, you're right. It was only 70,000. I apologize. I know where you're coming from. Thank you.
Okay.
So Ms. Sage, when you're ready, would you read that again, please?
Okay, so just to recap, so item A is deleted. Item B is being changed to 100,000. Item C is being changed to 200,000 and item D remains as is.
Item B is the same as it was.
Yeah, so it just,
Yes.
as 100,000, okay. Okay.
So item should be changed though, should it not? Because aren't we taking the 70,000 and putting it in the working fund?
Yeah, but see, item D says the remainder. It doesn't say the amount.
Yeah, it's not an actual number that's in there. It's not just as
I figured that out myself and I have it written down here. So, okay, sorry.
That's all right. Okay, Ms. Sage, are you ready?
Yes. Okay, so moved by Councillor Rolleman and seconded by Councillor Osner. That report FIN 16-20. Oh, sorry, Shelley.
So the second part of that resolution where it says, and that council appoint a COVID pandemic community relief committee, council's deleting that part as well.
Yes.
And then
Yeah,
it'll
thank
just go down to the bottom, where staff bring a report back for the internet.
Okay.
discussion.
Okay, thank you. So moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Osner that report Fin-16-2020 transferred to reserve 2019 surplus be received, and that council approve the following transfers to reserve for 2020 from the 2019 surplus. A, allocation of 100,000 to COVID-19 pandemic contingency fund. Item B, allocation of 200,000 to internet broadband reserve. Item C, allocation of balance of 2019 surplus to the township working fund reserve. And that staff bring a report to council to give options as to how to leverage funds from the internet broadband reserve in order to bring internet that is of good quality and at a reasonable rate to business parks and rural locations, which could provide a hotspot for free Wi-Fi to residents. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And I believe next we have Development Services Functions has nothing, correct? So
correct.
we are at 8.13, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, anyone wish to say, make any comments in regards to 8.13? Councillor Osner,
B and C, please.
okay, anyone else? Councillor Roman,
B and C, please.
okay. And that's it, okay, so let's do B and C.
Yeah, so that motion, so it's moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that the Committee of the Whole recommend the following item be approved as presented as outlined in the staff report listed in Community Services Function Area. So item 8.1.3, item A, report number PW-09-2020, request for proposal award for ND RFP-15-2020 for Willison Newell Street, Street Storm Drain Project. So that is as presented in the staff report. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie, sorry,
Yes.
Councillor, yeah, and then Councillor McCreary, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Okay, 8.1.3, I believe B, Councillor Osner, I believe you were first and then Councillor Roman.
Yes. So I'm reading this report and I have really mixed feelings about it because I don't think it's really something that we should be considering right now, particularly through this pandemic and COVID. I think that the insinuation or the optics of us passing a project like the refurbishing of the ice house, I think that's maybe something that we should leave for the near future, hopefully maybe a year or so. Even though it talks about it being completed within 1 to 5 years, this recommendation is still to put $300,000 aside for this. And I just think that right now it might be not something that we want to consider given the situation presently. Not to say that in the future we can't revisit it. I'm just thinking that I think that a lot of people are worried about their tax dollars going to very frugal things at this time, and here we are passing a $300,000 project that we want to add to our 10-year capital plan to be done in 1 to 5 years. It may not be something that we want to just put out there right now. That's just my thoughts.
Okay, Councillor Roman, you were next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I do understand Councillor Osner's concerns. The Heritage Advisory Committee has been working on this project for a number of years. It started way back when previous council put a roof on that building and saved it, basically. The Heritage Committee then got the building designated. The next step was the whole project of the assessment, the engineering assessment that's just completed. One of the things that this report will do, and this assessment will allow us to do, if approved by council, it will allow the Heritage Committee to begin the process of establishing a Friends of the Ice House kind of group, get some fundraising underway, get some local business owners and whatnot involved in helping us raise money to restore this building. There's no expectation that the full amount of money to be spent, $300,000 in the report, would be spent entirely by the township. The idea is that we're looking for partnerships, we're looking for fundraising, we're looking for different avenues, heritage grants, etc., that would then be available to us if this master plan for this building is approved. And the other thing that it does is it places it in the 10-year capital forecast so that it's in front of mind for council. It's not something that we'll get to eventually. We've seen how that approach has led to the building basically being left to neglect. We don't want that to happen. We want this building to be restored. We think it could be an amazing sort of center point for that entire precinct. And the information from this report will go to that to inform that master plan for the precinct that's being worked on right now as well. So we see this as a very integral part of the redevelopment of the former lawn bowling area to create a great park area for people to come down and enjoy riverside access. So I'm hoping that council will see the merit of this project and vote accordingly.
If I may, Councillor Osner, then Councillor McCreary, but I was just going to state, reading the report, I was shocked at the damage the roof has done and everything else to the interior. I'm afraid you leave something too long and it is beyond restoring. But again, speaking on Councillor Osner's point, we don't know what the end of 2020 is going to be like. So it's a juggling act. And I'm not sure where to go. I want to listen to the discussion. I believe Councillor McCreary and then Councillor Osner.
I would just like to say that we are not right now committing to spend $300,000 on this project because this is a part for building designated under the Heritage Act. It's just a type of building where there's lots of grants available. We could get private donations. We could get as Councillor Rolleman suggests, the Friends of the Ice House group, local fundraising committee. In 2024, AIR is going to be celebrating its 200th anniversary, and I think this would be a great community project to bring the community together to raise money to restore this building. And we have a very active Municipal Heritage Advisory Group, and those people have been working hard on this for years, and I think we need to support our heritage volunteers by supporting this report and letting them have a chance to raise money to get this project done, just like we gave the skate park committee the chance to raise some money to get that project done. And we aren't committing to this next year. I mean, it is something that's going to be phased in over, hopefully the next 4 or 5 years. So we have something for the AIR anniversary, the 200th anniversary.
But wasn't that the roof going to be done immediately or pretty soon? Did you not want the money for the option 2 with the roof? Am I incorrect on that?
Madam Mayor, the scenario put forward by the committee was if we're going to look at preserving the building and restoring the heritage elements, then you would want to recapture as part of that project the original architectural design and materials and engineering of the roof truss system, as well as returning the cedar shake shingle. So today, the roof is not reflective of a Part 4 heritage building. It is, however, prevented further deterioration of water from entering into the building. So the work done by 2 councils ago has prevented a further deterioration through the roof. What we are, however, witnessing is on the exterior skin, the limestone treatment of the 4 walls are deteriorating, and some of the masonry, stone, and the mortar has been exposed to the elements. And if we don't start looking at repointing the masonry in the limestone block and putting over the cladding over top of that stonework, that will continue to deteriorate. And it's caused partly by rain and ice. It's caused partly just by the penetration of the UV rays. And that is accelerating as we go forward. So that's probably the first element to be done to prevent further deterioration.
Councillor Osner, then Councillor Wallman.
Yeah. So I don't see why the Heritage Committee can't start some fundraising for it without this being approved by council right now. I mean, the skate park committee, they did a lot of legwork before we were involved. So I think that, you know, we can put the horse before the cart. The other thing is, and I don't disagree with any of the points that Councillor Rolleman had, the optics of it right now, I don't think it's a very responsible decision to happen right now. And the other thing is, I would hope that there would be some public input in regards to the building and what people think, whether it should be restored now or not. I'm worried that this is possibly one of the worst times that we could have this on the front page of the Air News.
May I go over the resolution first? Because the first part says that the Air Ice House and Creamery Building Assessment Report dated June 8th, 2020, as prepared by Reed be received. The report we received. And then the Air House building, go on and on, says Part 4 designation. Option 2, inclusive of the construction of a specific roof structure, be adopted as the preferred level of restoration-based repaired approach, and that staff be directed to include it in the 10-year capital forecast. So all we're basically saying is we received the report. And, you know, Councillor Austin, you talked about how the skateboard park first did a lot of, they didn't. They came to us very first because they couldn't receive a dime until we approved that we would write their as a donation and charitable receipts.
Yeah,
so they did come to us first and do exactly this, the roughing out of it.
But what they did was they did the legwork on the needs assessment to get the ball rolling in order for them to come to us as a preferred project. So they did a lot of the community work before they came to us. There's been no community work done on this ice house to find out, does the community want to restore it right now or ever? Like, or, you know, how does everybody feel about it? And the other thing is, like, when you were reading the motion, the problem with it is committing to the project, because it's saying putting it in the 10-year capital forecast, but then they say within the next 1 to 5 year period, the funds necessary to facilitate the advancement. So we're saying within the next 1 to 5 years, we are going to get the funds necessary, whether the Heritage Committee can raise $1 or $200,000. We're committing to that project. We put other projects on the back burner, and I'm concerned, like we've done a lot of work to bring some projects forward that are going on the back burner that, you know, are important. We've got committees working on trails and stuff like that. We've put all that on the back burner. And I can't imagine how some of the committees are going to feel if we waltz in with $300,000 for the ice house when we haven't completed projects that we've already said that we want to do, that we said are significant to the downtown, connecting it to Greenfield, etc.
Councillor Gillespie, then Councillor McCreary, then Councillor Rolleman.
Weren't we doing a study on the whole air ice precinct development, and the air ice house would be part of that, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't see what you know, what's the problem here? We kind of already said we were going to do that study, and things were, I guess there were going to be public consultation through that as well. So that would be consultation on the ice house as well, I would think, as the whole area. So I thought it was kind of one package that we were looking at to start off with, not just the specific ice house.
CEO
I may
McNally
be
can
wrong.
respond.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Gillespie, that was the intent of recommendation 6 as set out in the staff report. So if council signals that there's an intent to keep, restore in some form or fashion the air ice house, then that content and the report itself, the Reed Jones Christopherson report, would be sent to the consultant that's doing the precinct plan, of which this parcel forms a portion of the larger land area around it that's under analysis.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes, I think I'm sort of reiterating what CA McNeely said, and Councillor Gillespie said that the air ice house is a heritage feature in this larger master plan. And my understanding was that when this master plan is all put together, there will be some consultation of this master plan with the public. So there will be public consultation as well. We do have municipal advisory committees. We ask people who are interested in various aspects of the township business to step forward and volunteer. So our Municipal Heritage Advisory Committee has a dedicated group of volunteers. They are the public that we have consulted, and this is something that they want to do, and the township should support heritage. We don't have lots of heritage buildings that we can restore. This is the only one. So this is the one that we should focus our attention on. I don't see any benefit whatsoever to holding back on going out and starting the fundraising. The report is a basis for us, the Heritage Group, for raising money and applying for grants. So let's just get on with this and stop holding it back. There are plenty of people.
Councillor Roman?
Thanks. I was just going to say that we have to keep in mind this is one of the last remaining ice houses in Canada, and maybe the only remaining limestone ice house in its original location next to the river in Canada. So it's a very significant property. We've already had contact from lots of different people from outside of the township that have indicated they'd be interested in helping us fund this. All we need is basically the township to set up a path. And once that path has been approved, then everything will fall in place where, as Councillor Ross was talking about, getting groups to start raising money. Those groups are not going to do anything for us until they have a clear sign that we're committed to this project and we're not going to just tear it down or let it fall down. As soon as they know that we're committed to it, they can help us raise the money. I'm not asking council to spend $300,000. I'm saying let's get this approved, so then we can start putting in place the funding, going after those grants, getting outside groups to help us with the funding, and get this project done, which I think will be a diamond in the rough, basically right now, and become a gem for our township. So I think it's a great project. We need to just get this done.
Councillor Rossner?
The problem is the motion does say we are committing the money within the next 1 to 5 years, because it says here that 10-year capital forecast within the next 1 to 5 year period, the funds necessary to facilitate the advancement of option 2. So like I said, whether the Heritage Committee or any other committees get involved and raise $500, we're still committing that money as a council.
CEO McNally?
Madam Mayor, to sort of bridge between Councillor Rolleman and Councillor Rossner. If you're looking for some certainty in terms of perhaps what the exposure would be then to the taxpayer, maybe the discussion is that at the next Heritage Advisory Committee meeting, they discuss what they think would be the possibility of what they could raise through fundraising, grants, or similar endeavors maybe, and to report back then to council. So, for sake of argument, I'm just going to pick a number. If they feel that they can secure 60% of the funding, then that's maybe what they come back and say. And then council would look at then how the residual could be raised through the municipality.
Councillor Osner, would you consider an amendment to the motion eliminating that sentence? And that staff be directed to include the 10-year capital forecast with the next 1 to 5 year period of funds necessary to facilitate advancement of option 2. If we took that sentence out, would the motion be okay for you?
As I said when I started, I do not believe this is something that we should be putting forth to the public right now. I think we should wait until this pandemic is gone and our economy gets back, because I'm just a little afraid of bringing a project forward and people looking at it thinking, you know, here we go, you know, like, what are our taxes going to go up next year? And, you know, where's our money going? Fixing the ice house. Well, a lot of people have been deferring their mortgage. It's an optic thing. I think it's an optic thing. And it's like we always say with pecuniary interest and stuff like that, you know, things are, it could be optic, it could be real. And I feel that this is optic. I'm not saying we should not save the ice house, but it's been like that for a long time, and it certainly will not suffer another year. That's all I'm saying.
Before Councillor McCreary speaks, if I may, but this is just asking them to form the groups to start to fundraise. That's part of what we're passing. Councillor McCreary.
I'm reading this motion and I don't see what Councillor Osner says about us committing this money within 5 years. If you look at the actual wording here, it says that within the next 1 to 5 years, 5-year time period, the funds necessary to facilitate the advancement of option 2. It doesn't say we are paying for option 2. It says we are starting to work on option 2. That's fine. We don't know what we may raise with fundraising, and we might be surprised at how much we can raise at fundraising. I have actually had people approach me at events saying that they want to donate money to the project, and just to, you know, they're waiting, ready to be asked when something gets started. So I think we shouldn't underestimate how much money we might actually be able to raise. I don't think the Heritage Advisory Committee is even going to be able to predict that, but all this is allowing us to do is start trying. Right now the building is sitting there idle. And that's not acceptable. Let's just go out and try to raise some money. Let's start some fundraising. Let's get some community involvement.
CEO McNeely.
So the 10-year capital forecast as it exists presently already has set aside capital funds to be expended on the air ice house. The analysis was based on a report that was originally done in 2014. That report did not go into the level of detail as the current report. So the current report is much more encompassing. So the overall financial exposure is higher in this report than what is currently identified in the 10-year capital forecast. But there is already a financial strategy and notionally a time period for certain improvements to the air ice house. Now, I'm going from memory, but I believe right now it's shown as funded through external sources.
If I may, I don't want to overstep or forget Councillor Gillespie's point in that we were going to look at this area as a hub, and that we were going to have an assessment of the lawn bowling area and the building there as well. Should they all be looked at the same time? Just asking the question. Councillor Osner.
So, and that's the other point is, like, we talk about the air ice house precinct. We came up with this name several months ago. We're looking at this as a precinct that encompasses that whole area. If we do one-off and then we get a design program, that we might have to alter what we did before, because according to what's being recommended here, we're not just fixing the outside of the ice house so that it doesn't crumble and fall. We're putting flooring in it. We're putting electrical in it. We're putting lightings in it. We're putting beams in it. There's a lot that's being done inside. So we're not just saving it on the outside so it looks like an ice house. We're rehabilitating the inside. So why are we doing that? My assumption would be that we're doing that so we can have people come into the building, and it would be of the era of what it used to be. So obviously there must be a plan here to use the building for something. The GRCA might say, okay, you can only use the top, you know, you have to be 20 feet up, 15, 20 feet up on the ground. Well, that might constitute building a boardwalk. If you do this renovation and then you have to retrofit a boardwalk with the rest of the like, we don't even know what that whole area is going to look like yet. We want to go ahead on one part of the project. I don't see what the hurry is to do it right now. Let's get a vision of what we want to do with the whole area.
Okay, where are we at, folks? Anybody got any thoughts? Councillor Gillespie?
Yes. I think if we pass this motion that is before us, that doesn't mean we're going to go out tomorrow and start doing something. I think it's all connected, and I'd like to see it all connected, because that was the whole purpose of doing this ICE precinct area, that it would be all one great spot to go to. But we need to, like, I guess if you fix the outside pieces of the building, start with that, I would think, just so that it doesn't erode even more. That would be a good start, but I can't see why we shouldn't pass this motion just to get things rolling, as Councillor McCurry said, so that, and Councillor Roman, we can get some fundraising going and things like that. But I would put it all into the one project so that it's not, you know, something's not separated.
So CEO
It's not
McNeely, I think what Councillor Gillespie is stating is that, yes, we can pass this, but with the understanding that whoever we hire next to deal with the Ice House precinct must consider this report and work in a unit so that we have a complete area. CEO McNeely? And then
Madam
Councillor.
Mayor, we already have retained a consultant. We've been working on the assignment for about 2 months. With some of the relaxations announced today by the province, we'll actually be able to do some of the stakeholder roundtables as part of that broader public consultation. So if council adopts the recommendation as included in the staff report, the Reed Christopherson Jones report actually works its way then to the master plan precinct consultant, because council signaling there is some viable future for this building, purpose unknown, but that obviously it's going to be there in some form or state. And so they would now plan around that structure and look at both the public and the private lands that surround it, and how can they be integrated into a new destination along the Nith River within the downtown of Ayr. So this report would go to that consultant and would be part of that broader master plan discussion.
Are we ready for the resolution? Clerk, please read the resolution.
The motion is moved by Councillor Rowland and Councillor Gillespie. That PD report number 12-2020 be received, and that the Ayr Ice House and Creamery Building Assessment Report dated June 8, 2020, as prepared by Reed Jones Christopherson Limited, be received, and that the Ayr Ice House and Creamery Building Assessment Report dated June 8, 2020, be utilized by the Heritage Advisory Committee, Council, and Township staff to inform potential next steps in terms of the rehabilitation and restoration of this Part 4 designated heritage building, and specifically that option 2, inclusive of the construction of the specific roof structure, be adopted as the preferred level of restoration-based repair approach, and that staff be directed to include in the 10-year capital forecast within the next 1 to 5 year periods the funds necessary to facilitate the advancement of option 2, and that council requests the Heritage Advisory Committee initiate a review of potential sources of external funding that may assist in defraying the capital costs attributed to the restoration of the Air Ice House and Creamery building, and that the Air Ice House and Creamery building assessment report dated June 8, 2020 be circulated to the consulting team retained to complete the Air Ice House precinct master plan to inform key elements of their study. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Oster,
No, not right now.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Next, we have 13.1.3 Part C, reconsideration of safe spaces program, Piper's Glen Park. I believe Councillor Rollman, you had your hand up. Councillor Osner, did you also have your hand up on this one?
Yes, I did.
Anyone else on this one? Okay, Councillor Rollman?
I just want to say that the rollout of the Safe Spaces program hasn't worked in every area. So initially, I think we thought that people in this township required some outdoor space to socially distance. Turns out that a lot of people apparently have large enough properties, and they don't feel the need to have this reserved space. I don't know about the NDC parking lot or Schmidt Park parking lot. That might be okay, but I know had a lot of pushback about Victoria Park, a lot of pushback about the parking lot on the west side of the ACC, and of course, a lot of pushback about Piper's Glen. So I'm just wondering, can the motion be amended so that we can remove the Safe Spaces program from Victoria Park and remove it from Piper's Glen at the same time?
CEO McNeely and then Councillor Osner.
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rollman, my caution about Victoria Park is there's separate correspondence later in the agenda. And combined with the issue of the ring road within Victoria Park was the issue of the temporary one-way street for Rose Street. And so they're actually linked.
Right.
Council would actually have to rescind the bylaw that was passed under the under the parking and traffic bylaw to rescind the one-way designation for Rose Street between the North Ring Road and Water Street. So, as I said, there's separate correspondence on that item later as part of the agenda. And the clerk has a couple different resolutions depending upon which way council wants to go on the Ring Road and Rose Street. As it relates, you mentioned the west parking lot at the ACC. So as you know, we have the summer camp, the North Dumfries summer camp operating out of the ACC. They're using the west parking lot as part of their daytime activity and programming. And it's an integral component of their spatial allocation of their cohorts, because we cannot commingle cohorts within the camp. They each have to have a defined space, and as they move into space occupied by the other, if it's an indoor area, that actually has to be cleaned and disinfected before that can be occupied. So that outdoor space being the west parking lot is a very important part of the overall space allocation for the North Dumfries Sports Camp. So I mean, if council wishes to reconsider the safe spaces everywhere else, that's fine. But on Victoria Park, we would need to separately deal with the rescinding of a bylaw to designate temporarily a one-way street affecting Rose Street.
Councillor Osner.
I was going to say that I think we should just get rid of the Safe Spaces program. We've had more correspondence that are not liking it, moving pylons, getting rid of things. We never had a problem with the park before, and a lot of people are not liking that they don't have access to the park. They can't park there, they can't drive there. So I think we should just take a step back, and you know, there's something like this might work in the city where you've got a lot of apartments and you have kids that don't have anywhere to play, don't have anywhere to bike, don't have anywhere to go. But we're in the country. We're a small town out in the country. There's lots of people. There's lots of places to go. The kids have been doing it for 100 years in this town or more. So I don't see why we need to block off everything. Now, for the sports camp, maybe that can be dealt with as a separate issue, as a temporary for the sports park and the sports camp. And then if we have any other sport camps, by all means, we can do that again and create the safe space for them there. But I think we just we gotta open up our parks and let them travel to and from the park, whether they decide to drive down from the other side of town to play tennis, or whether they want to launch their canoe down at Piper's Glen. Open it up.
Councillor Wilman.
Are we going to discuss this later on, as the CAO said, or are we going to deal with this now?
So there's correspondence later in the agenda under items for discussion related to Victoria Park, and you have some emails, both for and against what has unfolded. There is no other correspondence related to any of the other Safe Places program.
Right.
So, all I was saying was there is correspondence. It is an agenda item for Victoria Park. Please don't lose sight of Rose Street and that enacting bylaw. If council wishes to abandon the Safe Places program in all the other parks, that's fine. We'll do it. So tomorrow we'll move the barriers at Clyde Park and we'll put the barrels back everywhere
Can I
else.
ask that we just wait and leave this for discussion later? Because I think there may be unique situations in either park. So let's just deal with the one park for now. And
The other
then later
parks
with
aren't on
correspondence.
the other parks aren't on
That's
the
right.
agenda.
But we will deal with it with the correspondence. We may ask for a motion at that time.
But Madam Mayor, they're not on the agenda. So
So we can't deal with them?
if you wish to deal with the Safe Places initiative for your parks, it would be appropriate to tie it in here. All I was saying is Victoria Park is already a separate component on your agenda later on.
Okay, Councillor Rossner.
Can I ask, I guess both Councillor McCreary and Councillor Gillespie, how do you got
I was going to ask her, Councillor Gillespie as well. Go ahead.
yeah, the parks out in your area, we're dealing with our parks that are here where, in air, but how does this affect your parks out there? Has it been positive or has it been negative? Roseville
Councillor
as well.
Gillespie. Councillor Gillespie first.
Well, I haven't been going very far lately, but I did drive past the Clyde Park and someone had moved the barrier there and there were people down in the park. So I don't know. Keeping the barriers there is only keeping the thugs away basically from the park, because anyone that goes to the park from Clyde can walk there. So, it was pretty much a no go thing there, but keeping the things up keeps the younger kids out of there. But someone had moved the barrier anyway, the big block. I don't know how they did it, but it was moved. And there were cars in there.
CEO McNeely.
So on July 1st, one of the cement blocks was moved. It was put back in place on July 2nd, and it was moved later that day. So we have somebody with a heavy piece of equipment that is moving those heavy stone blocks. And yes, we have noticed there are from time to time vehicles in the parking lot. I can tell you we are not experiencing the complaints of the past with kids doing burnouts and the like in the parking lot. The litter is significantly down in the park.
Well,
Phase 3
would
just
say
happened.
leave that there.
You'd prefer it be left there, Councillor Gillespie?
I said, anyone that goes to the park really would walk there anyway, other than people from out of town and people that shouldn't really be in the park. So I don't see it's a huge problem, but I say people are moving it anyway. So
So Councillor McCreary and then Councillor Williman.
I don't really have parks to go to actually in Ward 3.
And they're one in Roseville?
Roseville.
My internet isn't working very well right now. I've been advised that it is unstable. So it seems like things are cutting in and out, but I will say that I do use Piper's Glen Park. I have to drive there though it's actually physically quite close to where I live, but I actually have to drive there because it's on the other side of the river. And if we're just talking about Piper's Glen Park, I would support opening up the parking lot, because I certainly didn't enjoy trying to hunt for a parking spot on the road. There's a lot of vehicles being on the road, side of the road. You're in a residential area. You've got kids running out between the parked cars. It just didn't seem like a real safe situation. I'd much rather put my car down in the parking lot.
What about Roseville? What about Roseville Park?
Roseville, like the Roseville Community Center? I don't know about it. Did we close the parking lot off at the Roseville Community Center?
No,
I
we
don't
did
think we-
not, because it's got a
Yeah.
gravel surface. We only closed the parking lots either in or adjacent to parks that had a hard surface where activities could occur, like rollerblading, street hockey, pickup basketball, hopscotch, whatever. So Roseville has a gravel surface and it's not conducive to some of the program activities we talked about.
Okay, so what about, see, I don't know whether I want to open the ring road at Victoria Park or whether I want to create a parking area. Now, Councillor Rollerman, you talked to Agnes from Minor Ball, and she had suggested an area for parking. Where was that?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I spoke to lots of residents who are in favor of having the ring road closed. I see a lot of kids out there on their bicycles and tricycles, and families using that area, the ring road. The problem has been people playing tennis have nowhere to park. So they've been moving the barriers and parking the cars adjacent to the tennis courts. If we could provide them with a parking area somewhere off of Rose Street, then we could leave the ring road closed. Certainly we could leave the southern leg of the ring road closed. That's where I see a lot of kids on bikes there. We could remove later on, as the CEO mentioned, we could remove the closure on Rose Street. But if we had some parking area, then yeah, then most of that ring road could remain closed. I do see people using it. I walk my dog there twice a day, and I see lots of people out there using that ring road. And as for the other safe spaces areas, it sounds like they're all being used. So really, we're talking about Piper's Glen and some sort of modification to Victoria Park. That's really all we're talking about.
Councillor Osner.
So what's going to happen when the Air Vics come back and when the other ball teams come back? And like, so like they're all parked along inside there. Where are all these cars going to park? Even when the kids play baseball?
CEO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, for each of the parks that were identified in the staff report of June the 8th, there were different anniversary dates as to when the Safe Places program would wrap up. So for example, at Schmidt Park, it was tied into Labor Day weekend because we assumed with the opening of school, there would be the need for the full parking lot. For Victoria Park, it was suggested after the Thanksgiving weekend. So we were then report, as part of that June 8th recommendation that was enacted by or adopted by council at the 22nd meeting of June, staff were also to come with a report at the end of the year, speak to what observations were made, and council may take one or more of those parks and do something in future years. But there was no commitment beyond this immediate time period as it relates to future years. We were trying to take advantage of some of these idle areas in recognition that some of the sports organizations, because of COVID, were not operating as per usual.
So if I have it right, the only issues that I hear of are Piper's Glen and the Victoria Park. Piper's Glen, is anyone in favor of keeping it closed the way it is? Well, that's exactly what the resolution states, that we should allow it to open. So can we discuss Victoria Park going on with the correspondence and deal with the correspondence in regards to Piper's Glen, please? So Ms. Sage?
Yes, certainly. So it's moved by Councillor Rollerman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that CAO report number 17-2020 be received, and that staff be directed to abandon the Safe Spaces program at Piper's Glen Park, and the parking lot at this location remain open until the traditional closeout period at the end of the season for this park facility. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Before we leave this though, in Clyde Park, can we have a look at trying something different to keep that barricade up, or whatever we can do to prevent those vehicles from going in there? I don't know what we can do.
Heavier,
I'm assigning you to rack your brains. Pardon me?
is there such thing as a heavier barricade or?
They're 400-pound concrete blocks.
So somebody's coming in with the
They're
dump.
pretty heavy right now. Yeah.
You might have to get, well, they're moving it somehow.
Yep. We move them with a front end loader.
So somebody's got a loader that's doing it. Okay.
Well,
Mom,
see if
Pam, get
there's
out
not-
there with your video camera.
I was thinking, put a little camera on the post.
If it's not causing a problem, why don't we just leave it open then? Yeah, I can't see that it's any advantage to keep going back and moving the thing back, and then someone else comes and moves it again. It's why.
We could leave it
It's not
open,
causing-
we could leave it open, Councillor Gillespie, but with the lifting of restrictions today, I think you may see more people out and about. But why don't we give it a try? Why don't we review it again in the August meeting? Do we have an August meeting?
Yep.
So would we leave it then, CO McNeely, and we'll review it in August? Is that fair? We don't need a motion or anything?
Yeah, no, it's
Okay.
been noted. It's been noted.
Thank you. So we are now on to, where are we at?
8.1.
Report number, consideration of revised council meeting schedule. Okay, and I believe CO McNeely, or who's taking that?
So Madam Mayor, there's two reports under governance and protective services.
Yep.
There's CA report 1820 and CAO report 16/2020, which deals with the pandemic plan. So you'll be asking if there's anyone who wishes to speak to one or both of those reports.
Okay, anyone wishing to speak to any of them? Councillor Rossiter?
I just have a comment. I don't need to disrupt the whole process of approving it. I was just going to say that at these meetings that we want to commence at 4 o'clock. I'm all for it. It's just I am back to work, so that might be the first little bit might be an issue for me. But other than that, I'm all for it.
Councillor Gillespie?
I'm just wondering if we're going to talk about budgets, are we going to be able to do this in person, or do we have to do it on Zoom? Because Zoom, I think, is going to be really difficult.
Well, actually, ladies and gentlemen, since you can now meet,
50 people.
yeah,
So
August
why
the
don't we
11th?
why don't we pull the report and then we can have the discussion on the report.
Okay. So we will pull that one and we will go ahead and move the August 11th meeting, understanding that I have committee of the whole that day, which starts at 9 and is supposed to end around 4, but I can leave and try and make this special council meeting. But I wish we wouldn't book things the same day that I have my regional meetings. CO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, the August 11th meeting was set up in November of last year by Township Council. It was to deal exclusively with the long-term capital forecast. So
Yeah, but it
what
wasn't,
we've
the
done is
time
we-
change didn't happen.
That's right. So what we've done is this report, we're introducing a few more items, and to allow for the appropriate block of time, that extended the window of the meeting to allow for notionally an hour to an hour and a half for each item.
Right, and I don't know if I would be done or not, but I will make sure that I'm at this at 4 o'clock. Okay, so we are going to move that motion first.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, could I just speak to Councillor Gillespie's question about in person?
Yes,
So today, the Premier announced what they call the stage 3 opening of the economy. Waterloo region, amongst other areas of Ontario, are eligible to move to stage 3 effective Friday, July the 17th. So one key component as it relates to indoor public gatherings increases the threshold from 10 persons to 50, 50. So what that does allow council to do, if council is agreeable, is to come together. We have to maintain spatial separation, so 2 meters or greater. We're in a public setting, so we'll have to wear face coverings. And we could entertain with an audience, including members of council and staff that are present, up to 50 persons. So we would likely use McNeil Hall. And we would likely have to run a combination of both in-person and Zoom simultaneously, because you may find there are members of the public that cannot participate because maybe they have an immune compromised position and they can't be necessarily in a public area, and or they may be in self-isolation because of COVID, and yet they wish to participate in one or more aspects of your public meeting, and it would allow them to participate through through the Zoom platform and raise questions of members of council. So certainly for the August meeting, we have the ability to meet in person, but it'll likely be a hybrid session for both the meeting on the 10th, which is a regular council meeting, and then if we do have this workshop on the 11th, a similar arrangement would be made. We are going to have to overcome some logistics, and the question will be how many people can we fit in, I'm talking about council and staff, in McNeil Hall before we start getting some feedback off of our respective tablets in terms of our proximity to each other and disruption of signal and the like, but that's something that we'll have to figure out between now and August.
There's something else to consider. If this is a meeting of the public, we have to wear the face mask. It is difficult to talk through a face mask. I've had 2 meetings today where people couldn't understand each other because of the face mask. It was difficult to talk. Councillor Rossner.
I agree with you, Sue. And we all know what the acoustics are like in McNeil Hall too. So I think that, I mean, I'm happy to get back to our in-person meetings. I'm not so sure I want to be in McNeil Hall with a mask and separated 2 meters apart from everybody. I think that it's going to make it unnecessarily slow because people were going to be repeating themselves several times.
So I can suggest one other thing. Council meet in council chambers, maintaining 6 feet distance. It's not open to the public, but public can phone in or Zoom in. And if we can have the television screen as the Zoom thing, then we're not competing with each other. So they don't get the feedback, but we're physically there. If staff or 1 or 2 staff want to come in as well, that will be allowed at whatever we can fit in staff wise for the distancing. And then whatever staff can't fit in, they are in their offices Zooming in to allow for the communications. It's another hybrid. Can I ask CEO McNeely?
So we don't have cameras in the Dumfries room. So we have no way of feeding the picture of council as well as the audio from council back out to the public, except through either our YouTube feed, which is through the Zoom platform on your individual laptops.
How does Brantford Blenheim do it? Can we have staff look into how different areas are doing it? Because I know Brantford Blenheim is doing it. I know several councils are doing hybrids and mixed things. So maybe we can look into it, because we will not be staying in this format forever. But we know the masks are mandatory right now till September 30th. And that may change just depending on what happens out in this world. So I think I need a staff report, but we don't have a meeting till the 10th, right?
That's correct. Your
So
next
the other-
council meeting is August the 10th.
So August 10th, I guess, will be when the report comes. See you, Councillor Osner.
So September 30th, there's going to be another decision made, maybe slightly before that. That's not that far away. And rather than pushing staff to come up with a staff report by August the 11th or something like that, why, like, is everybody okay with just holding on for another couple of months, like month and a half or something? Like, we only have a ways to go, or do you feel that we need to do something about it now?
Councillor McCreary and then Ms. Stedall. You're muted.
I agree with what Councillor Osner is saying. I wouldn't want staff to spend a lot of time to try and figure out another way to hold a meeting if we're only going to be doing it for maybe a month or two. I think as much as I'm maybe getting tired of Zoom, I don't want to be sitting there with a mask for 2 hours. I mean, I've started wearing my mask like I've been required to, and it's hot. It's hard to talk and my glasses fog up. And, you know, I would really rather hold the meeting this way and then wait till we can get back to a more normal circumstance and not have staff jumping through
Very
hoops.
good point. But Ms. Stedall has a way for not fogging up your glasses. She'll probably tell you later. But Ms. Stedall, go ahead.
If you're wearing a cloth mask, I've been told if you put the Kleenex on the inside of the cloth mask, then apparently if you put it over your nose, it stops your glasses from fogging up.
It should suffocate.
Then you might not be able to hear all my wisdom. So
Go ahead, Ms. Stedall.
So I just wondered, especially Councillor Gillespie, you were indicating, I'm wondering, is the problem with your connection with the internet? If that's what the biggest issue is, because if there is, then there might be something that we can take a look at. Or, I mean, social distancing, we have actually had meetings where we've had, say the fire chief has actually sat in a separate room from our EDC, and by being in a separate room at the NDCC, you get a better quality of internet, but you're still in a Zoom meeting. I don't know if there's something that we can do like that.
No, my internet is surprisingly good. I don't have too many problems with it lately, but I say for the, well, I guess for the finance stuff, I guess, can you send me the papers in print so that I can look at them? Because that's a huge problem.
That's
So
the
I
other
think
issue.
for the finance stuff, I need something in copy. That would help me out immediately.
So there's two things. We can definitely send you some paperwork, especially when we come to the large spreadsheets. Those are much easier to read in paper format. And something that we have also done is we did this with the mayor because she was having a hard time with the agendas, and that we actually provided a second screen. So that sometimes help where you've got another screen to look at with your, whatever the documents are, the menu. Some of the other councillors mentioned that they're actually using a second laptop or a second tablet, but if a second screen helps as well, we can also take a look at providing that. You just need to let me know. Yep, exactly.
See, Ms. Gillespie, Councillor Gillespie, I have Zoom on the monitor up above. That's why you see me looking up, because my camera is actually on my tablet down here, and the agenda sits on my tablet. So I
have sent it to my own computer, but some of the things, it's too many pages and it won't download. That's my biggest problem. So
yeah,
anyway,
so then
I can transfer, no problem. But
so
yeah,
councillors, whoever needs a paper copy, please let us know.
Yeah,
okay. Or contact myself if it's something else that we need technology wise, and we can help accommodate.
Okay.
Okay. So right now we are at, we have not passed the
Meeting schedule?
yes. So CEO McNeely?
So Madam Mayor, I heard there's a concern about the potential start time. So it's not to do with the content of the meeting or the date. it's perhaps the early start time at 4. So I guess my question would be, is a 5 o'clock or a 5:30 better aligned with the availability of members of council? And is it fair to say that council would continue August the 10th, August the 11th? That's your next 2 meetings. You want to continue with the Zoom type meetings?
I have heard Zoom continue for 10th and 11th.
Yes.
I have also heard, and I was asked Councillor Osner, what about 4:30?
Well, like to me, 4:30 makes no difference. What I can try and do is I could probably get on a conference call with my phone. I just won't be able to video, because I'm able to keep certain things moving as I'm like on my earpiece listening to the meeting. So there should be no problem with me calling in. It just, I may have to go on mute and answer the phone and talk to,
That's okay.
you know.
And I think 4 o'clock will work. I don't know what the agenda for August 8th is. So, and I think this is important. I will be there. I will be here at 4 o'clock, because I'll probably be doing this with the region anyways.
Yeah, because if it's a long meeting, you don't want to start at 5 or 6 o'clock.
That's what I was thinking. If this is going to be long, I don't really want to push it later, because I'm going to be tired being at the region all day and then start later, an hour or so later, and go way into the evening. I'm going to be exhausted. I prefer to go right after the other. So I think leaving it at 4 o'clock, I'm okay. And Councillor Austin, you okay?
Yeah, I'll do my best to make it work.
Okay, then the motion, please, Clerk.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that CAO Report 18-2020 be received, and that Council reorganize and reclassify the Special Committee of the Whole meeting originally scheduled for August 11th, 2020, commencing at 6 p.m. as follows. 1. Special Committee of the Whole, Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, commencing at 4 p.m. And 2. A special regular council meeting, Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, immediately following Special Committee of the Whole. And that the business items to be included in the Special Committee of the Whole agenda include 1. Presentation and report from the Township Auditor on the 2019 financial statement. 2. Township Civic Center project. 3. Long-term capital forecast. And 4. The 2021 budget overview and framework. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Okay, and CEO McNeely, do you want to, anybody want to just touch base with the discussion consideration to rescind the emergency declaration COVID-19 pandemic? Councillor Rolleman.
My question is, after the province's announcement today, how does that change our emergency? The province is starting to go into stage 3 now. So we're saying that we're going to stay in this emergency state now for how much longer? Are we saying August, or are we saying August we're going to look at it? I'm just kind of curious.
CEO McNeely.
Well, Madam Mayor, one of the items that we did identify as part of our assessment of whether this is the appropriate time is we did signal that obviously when we wrote the report, we knew that the stage 3 opening was on the immediate horizon because the Premier had hinted as such. Obviously, when we wrote the report, we weren't clear on what the specifics would be in terms of what would be captured within the phase 3 boundaries. We now know. I'll be honest with you, some of the thresholds are higher than what I had anticipated in terms of both the indoor and outdoor public gathering thresholds, as well as some of the thresholds in terms of restaurant occupancies and the like. So the concern that was discussed at Emergency Operations Center was generally the data that we get coming out of the COVID assessment clinics typically is 10 to 14 days after the event. And that's because it typically takes somewhere between 7 and 11 days if a person is infected for it to demonstrate itself openly or outwardly. And then obviously the person would be assessed, including a swab test. That's then going to a lab, and then it either comes back as or a negative or a positive. And that window between potential exposure and those published results is typically in that 10 to 14 day window. So what we are suggesting is it would be prudent to see what effects or influence the opening of the stage 3 economy has locally. What are those early data trends coming out of the opening of the economy? And then at the August 11th meeting, the August 10th meeting, I apologize, the August 10th meeting, council would have a better understanding of those influences and whether or not we continue to see locally positive downward trend and or maintenance of stability in terms of new COVID cases.
If I may, Councillor Williman, so I think we're going to be very busy in the next month till the August 10th meeting when we revisit this, because we have to figure out how we're going to open, how we're going to do the staff, and everything else to still maintain social distancing, because social distancing still exists, and the mask bylaw, and taking in people and the public. Like I'm pretty sure that come this week, our recreation staff are going to be bombarded with calls of yoga wanting to start up, and will pickleball be running? Because all of this stuff, he opened all recreation. And what types of rules does that imply for our staff? What type of the extra work in just doing the cleanup from the being there? The floor is going to have to be wiped down every time. All door handles are going to have to be wiped down after every event. It's going to be horrendous. And signage. And so that's what we meet about. When when our group meets, we decide how things are going to be handled by staff and by myself and department heads, and how we're going to make it work. And it's only doing COVID-19 business. Once we close COVID-19, see, we've declared the pandemic, so that allows us to go out of normal realms of what regulates us. Once we close the EOC, we will not be allowed to do that. We can't change the way we run our day-to-day business. Okay, so what we have to do, COVID-19 allows us to change the way we operate under this situation. And we're not quite there to remove it yet. Councillor Rollman.
So what have we changed exactly? I'm just curious. What's changed in our daily operations that you're referring to?
Walk into the NDCC.
No, but
actually, you can't go there. You have to fill out the form
you have
first.
an EOC MT set up. There's additional costs. Now you have more staff being deployed. You have more resources being deployed. When I look at the criteria on the CEO's report here, we're meeting most of those points in that criteria have been met to cancel the state of emergency, but yet we're hanging on so we can interpret provincial mandates. But I don't understand, if we're only meeting once a week now, you're not meeting on any kind of urgency, why do we still need to have the state of emergency? It looks to me that we met all the criteria.
And we are concerned about the increase when we go to 50 and 100 people gathering. We were one of the regions that this was allowed to happen in, but it was interesting. I was shocked at the number that aren't allowed. Hamilton, Niagara Falls, Peel, Lambton, Windsor, Essex, a couple others. And if those people are migrating to here, then the chances, and I have a concern that why Ward 3 and 4 are now up to 11 cases. Why is it spreading in Wards 3 and 4? Or if it is spreading, it has. Since the last time it was announced, there's a significant increase, and I question that. I don't know why it is happening that way. So those are things we're going to have to monitor and watch. I remember that case in Kingston, which Miss Shettle was telling us about. A woman wanted to go to a nail salon in Kingston. She was from Toronto. She went and gave the virus to the staff working there. The staff worked at 2 nail salons, went to another nail salon, spread it there, and now Kingston has an outbreak. So it's okay. So mask bylaw went into effect today. I went to Dan Air, and a whole group of men, construction workers, walked in without masks. And Kibitz sat in there. And so those are going to be those that follow the rules. There are those that can't follow the rules, and I worry about their safety. And so I hope those that can wear a mask do, to protect those that can't. But also there's going to be those that ignore it. So we have to watch. We're in the watching phase right now. So I think over the next month to month and a half, we're going to go one way or another. We're either going to stay where we are or decrease, or the curve is going to go up. It's hard to say. I heard a doctor talk today about the second strain starting, but it's not as intense, but it's infecting more people. So they're worried about the strain now on hospitals and whether they can take the load, because it's not as deadly, but it is having an effect. So we're still at a sort of watch stage, and I would not want to shut it down until we know for sure. I mean, it sort of seems like we're in a little bubble, but I don't know if we can protect that bubble, especially with all businesses opening. We're on the GTA corridor, and with everything opening starting next week, you're going to see the roadways packed, people going back to work, daycare opening, everything's opening up. Then in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to see if there is an incline. And if not, hallelujah, let's put the masks away and get back to business as usual. But I'm just worried, that's all. I just have concerns that we may not be there yet. So maybe by the August 10th meeting, we will have an idea. Any other comments? You have every right to say, close the EOC and let's just shut it down. But I'm asking that it may be too soon. All the other municipalities have asked me to hopefully convince this council that it is too soon. All other 6 municipalities and the region.
Well, let's vote on it then.
Yep, go ahead. Got the resolution?
Yes, so moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor McCreary, that CAO report number 16-2020 be received, and that no action be undertaken at this time with respect to the rescinding of the township's emergency declaration associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, and that staff return to the August 10th, 2020 meeting of council with a further report / assessment of conditions applicable to that period of time on this matter. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
No.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Yes. That motion is carried.
Thank you. Now we have to adjourn committee of the whole and resume into council meeting.
So that motion is moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner, that committee of the whole is hereby adjourned and the council meeting be called back to order. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And now adoption of the committee of the whole resolutions, 9.1.
So moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor McCreary, that council adopt the recommendations as adopted and presented by committee of the whole dated July 13th, 2020. So that will be the recommendations that were just adopted at today's meeting as presented. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And 9.2 is adoption of the minutes.
So moved by Councillor Osner, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that council approve the following minutes. Special joint council meeting minutes with the city of Cambridge dated June 18th, 2020, and the regular council meeting minutes dated June 22nd, 2020. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
All right, now we are on 10.1, correspondence from Jim and Bonnie Brown regarding the water and sewer connections at the Lawn Bowling Club. The Air Ice House renovations at Victoria Park be received. So now do we want to discuss Victoria Park?
So item 10.1 has to do with
Just with receiving a correspondence?
yes, so that is to be received, and also that staff include the correspondence as part of the Air Ice House Precinct Master Plan study process.
Okay, so 10.1. Yes, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to call a motion on that. So that is moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rolleman, that the correspondence received from Jim and Bonnie Brown regarding water and sewer connections in the Lawn Bowling Club, the Air Ice House, and renovations in Victoria Park be received, and that staff include the correspondence as part of the Air Ice House Precinct Master Plan study process. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman,
Yes.
Councillor Ostner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
And the next one is the correspondence from John Fallings and correspondence from Bill Henderson requesting a three-way stop at Roseville Road, Edworthy. Can I recommend that those correspondences be forwarded to the region? To Bill Henderson? Not Bill Henderson. What's the name of the contact guy? Is it Bill Henderson?
Bob Henderson?
Bob, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. Received your story to the region of Waterloo.
Yes, please. I believe he's in charge of the project, is he?
So Madam Mayor, he's one of the individuals that's looking at that road project. It's just that you've got two different pieces of correspondence related to that intersection. Council had previously asked for a three-way stop.
Yeah.
The region had reported that they could not support a three-way stop. And you've got two residents that have taken different positions on the matter. So it was put here in case council wanted to have a further discussion on what the dynamics of that intersection of Fisher Hallman and Roseville Road should look like.
Councilor McCreary.
I think we have to distinguish between the two pieces of correspondence because they're actually dealing with different intersections. It's the same road, I believe. It's Roseville Road. John Fallings is regarding the intersection at Fisher Hallman, and Mr. Henderson is the intersection at Edworthy and Roseville Road. But in both, we sort of have opposite views about speeding on Roseville Road.
Yep.
I can understand, like Mr. Fallings' issue is he's a farmer and he drives equipment through that intersection. And right now he can just drive right through. He doesn't have to stop. And, you know, it is going to be inconvenience to him if there is a stop sign put up and he has to sort of inches way forward with some piece of farm equipment to get through the intersection. But the other piece of correspondence, I guess, just shows the frustration people have with the amount of speeding that's going on Roseville Road. And, you know, there's a conflict between getting as much traffic as we can through the intersection as fast as we can versus the safety of the community. And I find what's really get frustrating here is we're just not getting the enforcement that we need. I mean, if people would just drive the speed limit, just read the signs and drive the speed limit, a lot of these problems we wouldn't even be having. But because we aren't getting the enforcement that we need, it seems that council then, we can't stop vehicles. We're left with putting obstacles up. We would put up speed bumps and extra stop signs and bollards and islands and doing things to try and slow the traffic down. And I just wish that we could somehow get more traffic enforcement so that people would respect the rules and read the signs and drive the speed limit. We wouldn't have these things coming up constantly.
Yeah, so I guess I was, we will not send those to the region because they don't. We can forward Mr. Henderson's one. I don't think that would hurt.
Mr. Henderson wanting the stop sign at Edworthy.
Yeah.
Oh, three-way stop sign at Edworthy and
Yeah.
And Roseville Road.
Yep.
Yes, we could send that on.
Or maybe when we get these, we can send them on ourselves. Because we have the contacts, staff don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will do that ourselves. So just call the motion, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland, that the correspondence received from John Folling regarding concerns of a three-way stop in Roseville be received, and that the correspondence received from Bill Henderson requesting a three-way stop at the intersection of Roseville Road and Edworthy Side Road be received. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. Just a side note, Councillor Rowland, remember you were talking about the bollards being knocked down on the roads on Hilltop and that?
Yep.
I got to talk to a resident on Greenfield Road West, and a tractor came down and he said that the farmer wasn't even aware that he took them out. So the farm vehicles are also taking them out.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's carry on, please. 10.3. Council composition, regional council composition. So are we going to read the motion?
Yeah, Councillor Rowland would like to speak.
Oh, I apologize, Councillor Rowland.
So I asked about this at the last meeting. You said that the region had adopted the status quo as the option, but this is not saying that.
Yeah, and I find that bizarre because that was what was stated, that the region thing was that they were not going to go ahead.
Then at one time we discussed, reducing the size of that council just to the mayors.
Yeah.
And that's been thrown out by the regional staff. And then, so one of the options is just to leave everything the way it is, or the more troubling one is to say that we're going to go based on 25 or 30,000 population per councillor. That would leave us either with no representation, or with our regional representative having 10,000 North Dumfries residents and maybe 10,000 West Cambridge and 10,000 South Kitchener. Who knows how it's going to work out?
Why don't we get clarification? Because I was at that council meeting and Sean Strickland was there, and they said, well, the report says we're not going to do any, we're going to stay as we are. So we need that clarification. CEO McNeely.
So the region did adopt the report as presented in the covering letter. They are examining the feasibility of 4 different options. They have triggered what we'll refer to as the triple majority that is required to change the composition of regional council. They are also in the process of scheduling public meetings to consult the broader public toward the end of August or early September. Staff have suggested in a recommendation that this matter be referred back to staff, and that we come back on the August 10th meeting with a report on what the implications would be for North Dumfries. And as part of that review, certainly I'll be reaching out to my counterparts, so maybe we'll get a flavor of what is happening either in the other urban centers and or the other rural townships in Waterloo, and council will understand the broader mosaic and what's sort of filtering through the local levels as it relates to one of the models. Who knows? There might be a different model introduced as part of that future report, and something that council wants to put into the mix for the consideration of the region if it was to be adopted locally.
See, if the 30,000 is the threshold, what they're doing is saying that townships no longer exist.
So the model that's been identified identifies under all scenarios, the mayor would continue to be part of regional council. If the option 4 had a hybrid where there would be a shared regional councillor between Cambridge and North Dumfries, as there would be a shared regional councillor between Kitchener and Wilmot, and a shared regional councillor between the city of Waterloo and Woolwich and Wellesley. But that was one of 4 scenarios that were put in place or identified by regional staff along with the status quo. And then there are other variations where there would be increases in the regional representation count in the 3 cities.
Councillor Gillespie.
What I whatever happened to the Ken Sealing report thing? We had made a motion that that be made public. So
Still
far,
not
I've
public.
never seen it.
It's still not public.
Why? Like, that was paid by taxpayers' money and it's just disappeared into thin air. No one knows what's on there.
I have no idea, but the amalgamation is being thrown in my face daily at several meetings at regional council. And you've seen it in the press lately again, the record's pushing for it. And it's not a dead issue by far.
Well,
And on that note,
they need to add counselors at this particular time. Like, that would be just ridiculous. So
I have to agree. But anyways, so the motion, please.
But is there any
Councillor-
discussion with the area mayors about leaving the region and setting up a county system the way it used to be and getting out of this region?
I wouldn't mind it.
Because
That's something the CAOs can
a
discuss.
play by the cities to take all the power away from the townships, and we're going to have no voice at regional council if they go with this model. The mayors of the townships should get together and leave this region.
The debt load that the other parties are carrying, the townships are all solvent, and the debt loads that the cities are carrying is phenomenal. But I think that's not a closed option. I suggested that when I first got reelected. So not just us, but there's several townships that could feasibly go together and not become one, but become like the Wardens Caucus, the Southwestern Wardens Caucus.
Mhm.
But we would have to go through the Municipal Affairs and the Municipal Act, and we would have to amend the Regional Waterloo Act. But of course, that would have to be amended if they changed this stuff anyways. So that would be something we could request. But the motion states that it can come back on August 10th with the staff report. So let's go that route for now. Okay, read the motion, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Rolleman and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that the correspondence received from the Region of Waterloo regarding regional council composition review options and consultation process be received, and that staff return to the August 10th, 2020 council meeting with a follow-up report for the consideration of council. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Memorandum from CEO McNeely in regards to the draft resolution request for the province to review the farmland assessment policy. CEO McNeely, did you want to say anything?
No, Madam Mayor, this is a follow-up. Staff were asked at the last meeting, after you read the Puslich resolution, you asked staff to look at crafting a resolution for council, and that's what we have done. Now, the Madam Treasurer and I have focused on a slightly different framework than what Puslich had done. We are looking at aligning with the work that had been done by the Ontario Federation of Agriculture in looking at a fair way of valuing land and classifying farmland as a go forward, rather than pitting urban versus rural, almost in a pooling of taxation across the two different kinds of communities of interest.
Okay, all right. So any questions or comments before the resolution? You can read it as stated, not the whole thing.
Yeah, as
Go ahead.
presented, okay. So
I think Councillor Gillespie has a question.
Oh, I apologize. Councillor Gillespie.
I just, like, this, I read it a couple times, but I need to read it again from the OFA. It would eliminate, or farm taxes are so high now, and you're not, like this particular year, we're not going to get anything for crops because it has not rained. So would that address this? That, it's fine for the next guy that pays millions of dollars for the farm to pay the taxes, but the farmers now shouldn't be paying that tax. That's my concern.
So the OFA proposal would look at the economic value of the property in terms of the different kinds of crops it could support. It would not fluctuate the assessed value based on weather conditions and whether or not there was a hardship placed on a typical growing season because of a drought. So we'd look at
Yes.
quality of land, its proximity to marketplaces, the range of crops that could be grown, and where are they positioned in terms of economic return on a per acre basis. And from that, there would be some sort of assessment then calculated specific for that region or that area.
But our areas being close to the cities, we're getting hit hardest.
But we
The
may not
farmers in
be
this-
able to grow some high order products or produce, given the sand gravel composition of some of our farms. So we don't have the diversity perhaps of crops or the higher order, high end return crops that yield on a per acre basis in terms of dollars. So while we may be in proximity to the GTHA and in the shadow, we may not be able to grow the tender fruits and things like that, which might have a higher economic return per acre. So it's trying to create valuation partially, not exclusively, partially based on the economic return to the farmer on an acre of farmland.
Yeah, that's not what's happening now. So
That does not exist right now.
that's right. If that will change it. Okay.
Okay, the motion, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary. So with the chair's permission, as presented in the memo that was circulated in the agenda packet. Oh, Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. And next is 10.5, the correspondence in regards to Victoria Park Safe Spaces Program. So folks, what are we doing with this? Is there a safe place to park?
Not now.
But I mean, if we made the changes, Councilor McCreary.
I was there today and I went to the angle parking in front of the ACC. It's not that far to walk.
Councilor Roman.
One of the correspondents said that I have access to the park because I back onto the park.
You don't
And
back onto the
that's
park,
not
we
even
know that.
true. But if you were to park on the street right in front of my house, the walk to the park is no more than a couple of minutes. So I'm not sure where that person was going with that. But what it seems to be is people that are going there to play tennis or pickleball in the morning, some of the more senior residents find it too far to walk, so they want parking closer to the tennis court. No one seems to care if the south part of the ring road is open, so because no one's really using that portion of it. So I mean, I think we could leave that part closed. The big confusing part apparently is Rose Street, the one way. So if we were just to remove that and reopen Rose Street to normal traffic, and the only question that really becomes how do we give a parking space to the people using the tennis court? And I'm not sure what the answer is. Some people suggested coming off of Rose Street and having a temporary parking there. Some people have said just leave the ring road open from Church Street to the tennis courts and then out to Rose Street, but close off the other section. I'm not sure, whatever council thinks.
Any other thoughts, councilors?
Well,
Go ahead, Councilor Austin.
there's lots, like, for years, they've always parked on the grass in Victoria Park. It's never been an issue. They parked on the left side for tennis. They parked on the right side for ball. Like, I know we don't have any baseball going on, but I like Councilor Rollerman's suggestion that why don't we leave it open coming up Church? You come in the right hand and you have to exit on Rose. And you can't do the ring route, but at least you can get to the tennis courts and be able to park your car. Like, I mean, I just can't imagine that we have facilities that you're asking people to park down the road at and walk to. I mean, that's
I
just
kind of
not
like that
right.
idea. I like that idea. So.
And open up rows for both ways.
CEO
But the-
McNeely?
Sorry,
Do we
just-
have to wait to, go ahead, Councillor Austin. I'm
Sorry, just to finish my thought process, that eventually when we do have Ball and that open, Rose Street, there should be only parking on one side of it if people are going to park for Ball. They should only be parking on one spot, and that's on the actual park side. And I also believe we need to get those barriers back up that were taken down, that were rotted.
So Madam Mayor, what we can do is if council wants to keep the southerly ring road closed, that would be part of the resolution. And so what staff would do is we put the barriers at the throat of both the east and west ends of the southern leg and block it off. That would allow cars to enter through the gate at Victoria Park off of Church, continue north on the northerly loop through to Rose. The other component, being the third part, would be, and the clerk has prepared a bylaw that would rescind the amendment to the traffic and parking bylaw that temporarily established Rose Street as a one-way street from the Northern Ring Road through to Water Street. So if council wishes to return Rose back to a two-way operating street, then there's a bylaw prepared tonight to do that. And then those barriers along Rose Street would be removed tomorrow, along with the one-way signage.
Councillor Austin.
Also, can we have the one-way signage, sorry, that comes in off Church, and to make sure no one comes on Rose and turns left into the ring road?
So there is a one-way sign at the northern leg already that was installed last year to ensure that people understood. And we also put pavement markings as well.
And is there a nicer way that we can close off that southerly section rather than having those big orange pylons? Is there anything maybe a little bit nicer we can use?
So those orange pylons are reflective so that they can be seen during the day and evening. And they're in accordance with what they call Book 7 of the province as it relates to closures of roads. Now, technically, the ring road is not a public highway. It's just a lane within a park setting. However, you'll want to make sure that people can see the closure from a risk management perspective.
Yeah.
CEO McNeely, could we put a blockage such as we have at Clyde Park and do a fluorescent paint marking on it so it reflects at night?
Yes. We'll buy some blocks from MCon, and we'll have to get Tiger Tape 3M type tape that's reflective to put on it. I mean, honestly, it's really, really simple to put the two barriers and the traffic barrier. It's standard road closure stuff.
Okay, well, I don't want to do any added expense for this year, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine, Andrew.
Okay, do you have that motion, Ms. Sage?
Certainly, yes. So just so I'm clear, so Ring Road in Victoria Park is going to remain closed with the barriers?
No. The south leg of the Ring Road in Victoria Park would remain closed.
Okay. In Victoria Park. Okay. Okay, so the south portion of Ring Road in Victoria Park remains closed.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the council entertain a bylaw to reestablish Rose Street as a two-way road and rescind the bylaw of.
To rescind, yes, the bylaw that was approved.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll read the resolution as prepared, and if wish to make any changes to it, can advise. So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that the correspondence from the residents regarding Victoria Park Safe Spaces program be received, and that council enact a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 3167-20, being a bylaw to amend the traffic and parking bylaw to facilitate one-way traffic southbound as a temporary measure until October 30th, 2020 on Rose Street from the northern driveway of Victoria Park through to Water Street, and that council introduced bylaw number 3175-20, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 3167-20 as item 15 on the July 13th, 2020 agenda, and that the south portion of Ring Road in Victoria Park remains closed. That's correct? Yes, okay. Okay, just wanted to check. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
So the next one is correspondence. Any of the correspondence, does anybody want to pull any of the correspondence from 12.1 to 12.1.17?
I have a question though,
Go ahead.
because I voted no on the Heritage Advisory Committee's Path of the Air Ice House. I'll be voting. Will I be voting no on the, or just accepting the minutes?
We're currently at the correspondence, am I correct, Mayor Foxton?
Yeah, we're at the correspondence. We already, yeah.
12.1 down to 12.
12.1 is communication correspondence.
You're looking at 12.2.
12.1, so if it's 12.1.1 down to 12.1.7?
Yes,
Okay, I'm sorry, I took the whole page.
that's okay. So any of the correspondence anybody wants to touch base on? Seeing not, then we will just receive the correspondence, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Rolleman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that council received for the purposes of information the following items with the chair's permission as presented in items 12.1,